I didn't expect that I would be able to participate in such a decision-making in my lifetime. Front Naruto, Kuwajima Jigoru looked at the situation in front of him and murmured slightly. At this moment, the eyes of this short old man with a cane, a big scar on his face, and a prosthetic right foot burst out like thunder. I am willing to try it once. After all, there are not many battles for an old man like me to participate in. He said softly that the only people he was worried about now were his two incompetent disciples. Kaigaku with Agatsuma Zenitsu. Kaigaku is okay, he is very smart, except for the basic one type of thunder breath, he has basically learned it. The only worry may be his character, arrogant, and he is very happy. Apart from this shortcoming, he is almost his proudest disciple. Agatsuma Zenitsu worries Kuwajima Jigoru the most. He is too timid and cowardly, he has no self-confidence as a swordsman at all, fears and avoids fighting with ghosts. It can be said that he is completely unsuitable for a swordsman of the ghost-killing squad. It's the same with me. I didn't expect to be able to go out of the mountain at this time, and I would have the opportunity to go to the battlefield again. Waterpillar, Yorokodaki Sakanji is also whispering slightly. He is almost the same as Kuwajima Jigoru, both are in a semi-retirement state, and now the main energy is not hunting ghosts, but as a trainer to train a new generation of ghost-slaying team disciples. In this generation of disciples, he has cultivated two very good disciples, Please Rabbit and Makomo, and recently accepted a good disciple Tomioka Giyu. It can be said that this life has no regrets. Although I am useless and I don't think I can kill Kibutsuji Muzan, but the master entrusts me, I will do my best. The worst is to turn into ashes. The former flame pillar, Rengoku Mojiro said flatly. Ever since his wife Ruhuo passed away, he, who used to be hot inside and scorching sun, seemed to have been poured with a basin of cold water. He no longer had any interest in participating in the ghost-slaying squad, so he resigned from Yenju's position, and just stayed at home. Use wine to drown your sorrows. Although his heart was already ashamed, he was entrusted by the most respected Lord Yubayashiki Kagaya, and was willing to try again with this broken body. Seeing how everyone trusts themselves so much, Yubayashiki Kagaya, the master, is also very touched. Although I am willing to try once, I also have to be careful. I decided to divide this operation into two teams. The first team is former Yenju, Rengoku Mojiro, water column, Yorokodaki Sakanji, rock column, Hamejima Kiyome, former Naruto, Kuwajima Jigoru. The second team is fashion, Kochu Kanae, fresh Yenju, Rengoku Kyojuru, sound column, Uzui Tengen, Shaju, Tokito Muichiru, wind column, Shinazugawa Sanemi, snake column, Iguro Obanai, Mi Kanroji Mitsuri. The first echelon goes first, and the second echelon waits for an opportunity. If there is no signal from the first echelon, there is no need to go. The first echelon, the second echelon. It is obvious that the first echelon is mainly composed of seniors, and the second echelon is more of the blood of the new generation of Ghost Slayer. It can be said that whether it is the style Kochu Kanae, the love column, Kanroji Mitsuri, or the Shaju, Tokito Muichiru, almost all of them have become pillars for a short time. They are all the freshest blood in the pillar level of the ghost killing team. As long as these people are there, even if all the first echelons are killed in battle, the ghost killing team can continue to exist. Apparently, although the master, Yubayashiki Kagaya, was willing to believe the news delivered by the ghost, he also made corresponding precautions. This is the most basic quality that a leader should have. At any time, when you are not completely sure, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. At a disadvantage, the reason why the ghost killing squad never ceased. Generation after generation of swordsmen of the ghost killing team died on the way to hunt ghosts, but there are also generations of fresh blood pouring in. As long as ghosts still exist, as long as ghosts still harm the human world, as long as ghosts still devour human beings, the team of ghost hunters will never be extinct. My lord, please let me be in the first echelon. After listening to the team assigned by the leader, Style, Kochu Kanae bent down and pleaded earnestly. As far as she is concerned, it is she who tried her best to promote the cooperation with ghosts, and it is only natural that she is on the front line. If the ghost killing team caused losses due to her trust, then she should be the first to suffer the damage. Instead, let the seniors take care of her. Yubayashiki Kagaya shook his head. He naturally knew what Kochu Kanae was thinking, but at this moment, it was not the time to think about it. Only this kind of distribution is the best. Style, Kochu Kanae has just become a pillar, not long ago, and lacks experience. With the older generation of pillars, it is certainly impossible to achieve the most tacit cooperation. At the same time, as a new generation of pillar, Kochu Shangfui still has more room for growth. And the pillar of the older generation, like a person's life, is already coming to an end. The waves behind the Yangtze River push the waves ahead. The front wave is about to come, and the back wave needs to accumulate more powerful potential behind it. Kochu Kanao still wanted to say something, but Yubayashiki Kagaya, who was the master, had already waved his hand and looked at the first echelon. Former Flame Pillar, Rengoku Mojiro, Water Column, Urokodaki Sakanji. Rock Pillar, Hamejima Kiyome, former Naruto, Kuwajima Jigoru. Standing up, bowing to the 4 pillars, 4, I'll leave it to you. Amitabha. Hamejima Kiyome uttered a chant, and looked at the other 3. Hamejima Kiyome takes orders from the Lord. Rengoku Mojiro, come on. Kuwajima Jigoru, on top. Urokodaki Sakanji. Sanshang Li, while talking, the 3 of them raised their weapons, and the brilliance of Nichiren blades was shining in the yard at this moment. A piece of bright. The sun's light gradually dissipated. Soft moonlight rises. Although moonlight can vaguely illuminate the world, it does not have the temperature of sunlight. Cool as water. Su Mu knelt and sat in the middle of the courtyard, holding a rag in her hand, constantly wiping the Nichiren blades in her hand. The light of the sharp blade was refracted by the moonlight, making it faintly water-cooled. Feeling something, the golden eyes under the bamboo hat raised. Mikomo, take the Kamado family to the house, you are responsible for protecting them. He said softly to the girl who was standing silently beside him. The girl hesitated slightly. Her beautiful eyes stared at the Mu, who was kneeling there, quietly observing the sword. Ghosts are immortal. He said softly. Just right, I also want to know where my limit is, if it doesn't work, I will run. It's okay, it's really not good, but I have to run. Mikomo pursed his lips, exhorting seriously. Certainly. He said lightly. Do you think I will work hard for a stupid woman like you? Being called a stupid woman, Mikomo didn't feel annoyed, but a little happy. Step forward and gently hug from behind. After a few seconds, he backed away, turned his head, and returned to the room with Kamado Iji and her child. Su Mu has his work to do. Mikomo, too, is not idle. The battlefield ahead belongs to Mu, in the rear is the place guarded by Mikomo. The cold wind was blowing, and Su Mu was the only one in the whole courtyard. Under the cover of the bamboo hat, the pair of golden eyes lifted up at this moment. It's just right, look at the so-called breath of the sun. He said softly. It is precisely because I have learned the breath of the sun that I am confident. Standing up, he raised his head and looked at the full moon in the sky. Since it's already here, why hide it? As a ghost ancestor, you really make me look down on you. With his hands behind his back, he said lightly. Although I didn't notice Kibutsuji Muzan's breath. But obviously the other party must be watching nearby. Hee. With a cold voice sounded. Under the moonlight, a young man dressed in black Western-style clothing, white hat, black hair, tall, pale as paper, plum-red eyes, and delicate features appeared at some point. Sure enough, it's a ghost just like me. Kibutsuji Muzan walks lightly. A ghost that I didn't create is so interesting. Behind him, dozens of ghosts of various shapes followed, some were tall horse ghosts, and some were like toads. Look at each other. The corner of Su Mu's mouth was slightly pursed, and she unconsciously pressed her hand on the hilt of her sword. It really came. At this moment, he narrowed his eyes and looked at Kibutsuji Muzan quietly. This was the first time he looked at Kibutsuji Muzan head-on. The world's first ghost, the absolute ruler of ghosts, claims to be an infinitely close to perfect creature. Is this the Kibutsuji Muzan who has the power to kill all ghosts in this world, and is secretly called, that lord, by all the ghosts? He looked at each other. He pursed his lips and smiled. I am different from a cowardly ghost like you. Is it different? Kibutsuji Muzan murmured. Plum-red eyes glowed with bloodthirsty light. What is different will eventually disappear in this world. Ah, Su Mu sneered, and kept rubbing the Nichiren blades with his fingers, feeling that he and the Nichiren blades were becoming more and more compatible. Join me, come to me, become the same as me, you will become the new 12 Kazuki. This is the supreme glory of ghosts. Kibutsuji Muzan opened his arms. What the ghosts of this world almost desire is to become 12 Kazuki, eager to distribute more blood from him and become stronger. Rats are not good at meeting children. Although tigers can sniff roses carefully, how can tigers live together with rats? He smiled, rubbing his fingers faster against the Nichiren blades, and waited silently. He is not alone. The ghost-killing team arrived much later than he expected. Stopped. Or, you don't believe me at all. Under the bamboo hat, golden eyes flickered. You are the stupidest ghost I have ever seen, a ghost, standing with humans. We are all ghosts. Why, you and I can't be called the same kind. Su-mu interrupted the conversation with the other party. Kibutsuji Muzan lowered the brim of his hat, and took a step back. It seems that you are determined to be my enemy. Su-mu raised her head, under the bamboo hat, looked at the other party with golden eyes. I'm afraid, you can't tolerate my existence, can you? Very clever. Kibutsuji Muzan waved his hand. Kill him, and you will get more blood from me. Even so, are you too timid to take action yourself? Kibutsuji Muzan, you really are. Let me look down on it. He obviously has the strength to overwhelm him, but he dare not make a move, and he needs to let Ju come down to test himself. Really cautious or timid? Kibutsuji Muzan's face was ugly, and he didn't make a move because of Su-mu's aggression, but stayed back more and more. He will hide in the deepest place and give the opponent a fatal blow. Is this Kibutsuji Muzan? Su-mu lowered her head. No wonder. Even people like Jiguo Yuanyi, who are comparable to living gods and Buddhas, could not kill this ghost. But watching the ghosts coming up, also is expected. It is the best nourishment to enhance one's own strength. Caressing the blade with fingertips, Nichiren blades trembled slightly as if echoing the owner's wishes. And let me walk alone in the dark. The wind blows gently. Under the reflection of the golden eyes, all the breath of ghosts emerged in his eyes. And at this moment, he moved too. The blade was out of its sheath, and with rapid steps, his blade directly jumped over many ghost figures, and slashed towards the figure called, that adult, by all the ghosts. Nichiren blades slashed towards, that lord, like a frightened bird. Boom. Nichiren blades seemed to have penetrated the phantom, without the slightest sense of slashing, and the remaining power fell on the ground, bursting out with a bang. The figure of Kibutsuji Muzan drifted away without knowing when. Go to hell. The hoarse voice echoed in the infinite darkness. This moment. He is surrounded by ghosts and ghosts, all around him are ghosts driven by Kibutsuji Muzan. Probably the only good news is that they are all just junior ghosts and evolved ghosts. As for 12 Kazuki, there is no one. It seems that Kibutsuji Muzan's sudden appearance in the Kanao family was beyond Kibutsuji Muzan's expectation, and he was unable to mobilize 12 Kazuki in time. Otherwise, with Kibutsuji Muzan's cautious character, December will definitely be dispatched. The figure stood surrounded by ghosts, and the golden eyes under the bamboo hat opened. Ghost Eye exploring and breaking through obstacles can break through illusions. In an instant, everything around was extremely clear, and the figure of Kibutsuji Muzan also came into view at this moment. The opponent did not try to attack him. Instead, taking advantage of being entangled by the ghosts, he floated towards the Kanao family behind him. Apparently, Kibutsuji Muzan has discovered Su-mu's intentions. Prepare to kill the Kanao family first. Sure enough, the battle will not go according to your own ideas. Su-mu murmured. Kibutsuji Muzan is not an ignorant person, he can survive for thousands of years, even if the living person who is comparable to a god and Buddha can't kill Kibutsuji Muzan, he can see it. Did I allow you to pass without my consent? He murmured softly. Next moment slight breath. Breathe complete works, breath of the sun. The energy from the sun entered the lungs, and the scorching sun energy brought a strong sense of stimulation, stimulating the ghost body, making the ghost blood in the body boil at this moment. A powerful breath spread from his body in an instant. The breath of the sun, the burning sun of the land type. The type of land from breath of the sun, a sword was slashed out, and the sword seemed to be spinning, releasing a flame-like slash, and the ghost who was rushing towards him was instantly split into two by the sword. The slashed part of the ghost was still burning like a raging flame, which made the ghost's regenerative abilities seem to be restrained, and it was impossible to heal in a short time. A sword slightly broke the closed state of the ghosts, and he bent down suddenly, with his knees slightly bent. As soon as the foot stepped on the ground, the whole person shot out like a cannonball. Breath of the sun 7-shaped Yangwatu. The man was still in the air like a cannonball, but the Nichiren blades in his hand did not stop, and the 7 shape, from breath of the sun, moved suddenly. From top to bottom, stab the enemy, and along with the thrust, a ring of flames will be generated around Nichiren blades. Cut towards Kibutsuji Muzan. Up. With a sneer, Kibutsuji Muzan, who was drifting towards the Kanao family, had to stop, staring at the slashing sword with his scarlet eyes like plum blossoms. Know the breath of the sun. There was a flash of astonishing anger and fear from the soul at the same time. It was a hangover from having been from that one figure in the past. Even though countless years have passed, that sword that shone like the sun still circulated so clearly in his mind. For a moment, he had the idea of running away. But immediately this thought was abruptly stopped by him. His figure was completely different from that person. I have personally experienced that sword like the sun. I have personally experienced the breath of Ji Guo Yuan Yi. It seems that I'm going to play with you. Kibutsuji Muzan gave a penetrating smile, and the arm from the youth suddenly stretched out, but just in the middle of it, it burst suddenly and turned into a huge heterosexual arm. Choke. Crossed with a sword, it rained blood all over the sky. The huge arm of the opposite sex was cut off directly. He was half kneeling on the ground, holding the Nichiren blades in his hand. The blade was in the state of retracting or drawing a sword. Tilt your head slightly. Opposite Kibutsuji Muzan did not know when he was no longer in the state of youth before. The Western-style black clothes on his body have been torn apart, and the white hat is also missing. What appeared in front of him was a white-haired man, whose limbs and lower body were covered in blood and hair, with a huge mouth with sharp teeth growing all over his body. Its arms turned into thorn whips, 9 tube-like objects protruding from the back. The full-body state of Kibutsuji Muzan. At this moment, a powerful oppression came head-on with an awe-inspiring, cold aura. Even if the heart is still like water, but under that powerful oppression, the body trembled as if instinctively. At this moment, it was as if he was being targeted by a ferocious beast from a natural enemy. The ghosts around did not know when they knelt down on the ground. Kibutsuji Muzan let out a low growl at the surrounding ghosts. All the ghosts moved like black shadows, rushing towards the Kanao family behind Sumiu. Under the bamboo hat, Sumiu lowered her eyes at him at the moment. Obviously can't take these into account in front of him. Kibutsuji Muzan, who was completely in combat form, exuded a powerful aura that made him dare not be distracted for a moment. Da. Can Mikomo handle it? But at the moment, he was no longer allowed to think about these issues. The attack from Kibutsuji Muzan has come swiftly. Kibutsuji Muzan's attack was like a gust of wind and rain. Behind him, 9 pipe-like objects waved like chaotic whips, and the 2 arm-like whips also moved suddenly. Whether it's the whip behind Kibutsuji Muzan or his arms, they all carry extremely powerful power. Whenever the body touches a little bit, it will definitely be split. Even if the ghost's regenerative ability will heal again, but in the combat state, one step is at a disadvantage, and the next step is too. Devoured fate ghosts are hard to kill ghosts. But ghosts eat ghosts. The figure danced on the tip of the knife, and the Nichiren blades in his hands also emitted a scorching sun-like attack. But under the powerful offensive, he still retreated step by step. This moment Sumiu really realized how powerful Kibutsuji Muzan is. Now he and Kibutsuji Muzan are completely 2 levels of existence. Unconsciously. The body is covered with wounds. A series of wounds formed on the body, and golden blood dripped continuously on the ground. To him it is no longer possible to continue. Just like Mikomo said, it's really impossible, you must run. The whip brushed past her cheeks, and the bamboo hat on her head shattered. Su Emu's face was illuminated by the gentle moonlight at this moment. A pair of ghost horns are also slightly glowing at this moment. Are you going to run away? He looked at the evil spirits rushing towards the Kanao family, his golden eyes exuded a sharp light. I'm not. Kibutsuji Muzan, he murmured, looking up. I already have a decision in my heart. Tanjiro's operation was far more difficult than Tamayo thought, and it may take several hours before the operation is over. But glance slightly outside the breath from Kibutsuji Muzan, although this breath is blocked, but how long can it be blocked? Operate with peace of mind. Before I die, no one will hurt you at all. Mikomo pressed the hilt of Nichiren blades with his hand, and his slim figure stood up suddenly, looking at the man outside who kept retreating in front of Kibutsuji Muzan. He couldn't help covering his heart with his hand. I want to help, but fighting at that level is no longer something he can intervene in. I just hope he doesn't hold back. It was the only thing she could hope for. As for her looking at the trembling Kanao Iji and her child who had already been frightened by the current situation. Looking at Tanjiro who was trying to pretend to be strong, but his footsteps are still trembling slightly. Looked at Nezuko who was holding his mother's hand, he was already very scared, and he was still trying to comfort his younger brother and younger sister. Her eyes are firm at this moment. They are all places she wants to protect. That's what she promised. Tanjiro. Mikomo's eyes fell on the boy. Compared with younger brothers and younger sisters, only this person seems to have some combat power. Exist. Tanjiro hurriedly stood up, holding his chest hard. Protect your brothers and sisters, she said softly. I will. Tanjiro picked up the axe that his father used to chop off the head of the giant bear, and held it tightly. Did Mikomo look away, and landed on Ms. Tamayo who was still undergoing surgery. The operation has been carried out from daytime to now. I don't know how long it will take. A definite time is required, 3 hours. Tamayo has the answer. Mikomo nodded, put his hand on the hilt of his sword, and pushed open the door. Oncoming is the raging evil spirits. Go out the door and close the door. With unarmed women and children behind him, there was no room for Mikomo to retreat. From the corner of her eyes, she looked at the Mew, who was still fighting Kibutsuji Muzan. That was what she cared about most. The raging evil spirits have already pounced teen Nichiren blades unsheathed. Water breathing, 3 types of flowing dance. The girl's figure moved at a high speed like a stream of water, and because the speed was too fast, it left behind phantoms everywhere it passed. Crack. Click. Accompanied by a crisp sound, the head of an evil spirit fell to the ground, accompanied by the infiltration of energy from the Nichiren blade's sun. It turned into black smoke and dissipated, leaving an unpleasant stench in place. Girl holding a sword standing in front of the door. Come on, ghost bastards. Mikomo bared his white and tender teeth, and at the same time, put on the fox mask on his head. In a flash, it's like turning into a 9-tailed fox fairy. Think about the past, unless you step through my dead body. The girl's crisp voice sounded, accompanied by the girl's firm determination. Hamejima Kiyome, Rengoku Mojiro, Kuwajima Jigoru, and Rinza Kanji are also on their way. At this moment, he also felt the breath of the evil spirit spreading to the front. That breath, so dignified, is like the deepest haze. Walk. Almost without hesitation, the 4 of them hurried towards the place shrouded in ghostly aura. Before, Yenju Hamejima Kiyome may have hesitated, but now, the whole person is like a walking bear, heading towards the place where the incident happened. Mikomo is still fighting. The upturned nose was panting violently, and the girl's dress had already been stained with your blood. Very tired with his own strength, he blocked the raging evil spirits. If it wasn't for the perfect inheritance of water breathing, if it wasn't for following the Mew to slay evil spirits these days, and accumulated enough experience, if it wasn't for the daily necessity of accepting the teachings from Mew, with an attack that almost exceeded the limit, she might not be able to hold on for so long. Gasping for breath, seeing that the ghost's body, which had just been split into 2 halves by her sword, was rapidly healing, and finally turned into a hideous appearance and let out a huge roar. Looking at this, her eyes lowered up to now, her strength is no longer enough to accurately scratch the ghost's neck with Yulin force. However, the Nichiren blades cannot be used to chop off the ghost's neck, but to cut at other parts, even if it can hurt the ghost. But for the ghost, no matter how serious the injury is, it will heal in a very short time. Look at the evil spirits used again. Mikomo held Nichiren blades tightly, panting violently. Once, he could move lightly, but now, every step he takes feels as heavy as lead. Would love to stop and take a rest, but still able to rest. At least when life has not come to an end, it cannot stop and rest. Not to mention, Mew is still fighting, although his eyes can only see a little bit of the battle on the battlefield. But the pressure on Mew was definitely many times greater than what he was facing here. Mew is facing Kibutsuji Muzan, and myself. With a strong breath, he held the Nichiren blades in his hand, and the blades slashed like water waves. The head of an evil spirit was chopped off. Roar. An evil ghost let out a loud roar, and the whole person rushed towards her like a cannonball, and the ghost claws that were as sharp as knives slashed at her. In the air, Mikomo could only watch all this. If it was before, she would easily dodge it with her speed. But now, his body was as heavy as lead, and he could only watch the sharp claws slashing towards him. It is no longer possible to escape. Finished? She unconsciously closed her eyes. The girl sighed slightly. She couldn't keep up with Mew. After all, she only hoped that Mew would listen to her. It was impossible. She had to run. Brush. In the pitch black night, the sword light rippling like water ripples across. Water ripples. The ghost's sharp claws stopped abruptly, stopped in midair and then fell down as if losing strength, and the ghost's head fell together with the ghost's claws. An old man wearing a Tengu mask appears, blocked in front of Mikomo. The girl under the fox mask suddenly opened her eyes. Master, water pillar. Yorokodaki Sakanji turned his head and looked at his apprentice, under the Tengu mask, with a gratifying smile. Mikomo, step back, the battle below does not belong to you. While speaking, his eyes couldn't help jumping to the distance, the 2 entangled ghosts. Lifetime. This is the first time I've seen Kibutsuji Muzan. Amitabha, a long Buddha's chant, rock pillar Hamejima Kiyome rushed over. Then there is the former Yenju Rengoku Mojiro. Former Naruto, Kunishima Siguro. Looking at everything in front of them, the 4 old people looked at each other. Breath of thunder, breath of flame, water breathing. Breath of the rock, come on. Export almost simultaneously. The breath surged. The 4 pillars rushed towards the battlefield, and at this moment, the Nichiren blades also unsheathed at the same time. In a flash, the pitch black night glowed with an extremely bright light. The night is so gloomy that you can't see your fingers, but at this moment, bright sword lights appear from time to time, illuminating everything around. Former Flame Pillar. Rengoku Mojiro, Water Column, Yorokodaki Sakanji. Rock Pillar. Hamejima Kiyome, former Naruto, Kuwajima Jigoru. The four hold Nichiren blades and run around the circle. Accompanied by the actions of the four, the heads of one evil ghost after another fell to the ground, and then turned into streaks of black smoke, completely disappearing from this world. Faced with the combined force of the four pillars from the ghost-killing team, all the ghosts retreated. Finally, a hole was torn open. The scene of the battle was revealed. Kibutsuji Muzan stopped attacking with cold scarlet eyes. Opposite Sumyu held the sword and half-kneeled on the ground. One arm had already fallen off, and one leg had disappeared. At the chest, a huge blood hole emerged. Incomparably miserable. Compared with Kibutsuji Muzan, who is intact, his condition is really not good at the moment. You bastard. Kibutsuji Muzan gritted his teeth and stared at him coldly. Sumyu raised his head, his golden eyes stared at Kibutsuji Muzan coldly. Bah. Spitting out the stagnant blood in her mouth, Sumyu, who only had one leg, stood up slowly. As it stood up, the arm that was torn apart by Kibutsuji Muzan before, and fell to the side, also climbed up again, and finally mixed with it completely. A thigh that was completely swallowed, at this moment, also began to mix. For ghosts, as long as they are not killed completely in an instant, they are almost immortal. Perhaps, for the ghost ancestor Kibutsuji Muzan, there is also the defect of being afraid of the sun. But for the ghost Sumyu, even the sun is not fatal to him. Immortal. No matter how serious the injury is, it will recover again in a very short time. This is also one of the reasons why Sumyu dared to face Kibutsuji Muzan. Seeing Sumyu recovering as before, as if he was not injured, the corner of Kibutsuji Muzan's mouth twitched slightly. Immortality used to be one of the effective means for him to deal with the enemy, but now it has become the most difficult thing he faces. He didn't know how many times he had hurt Sumyu in the previous battle. But without exception, as long as the opponent cannot be killed in an instant, the opponent will recover in a very short time. However, even so, as long as he was given a little more time, Kibutsuji Muzan felt that he could still take down the haunting ghost in front of him. But looking at the four girls from the Suicide Squad who are staring at themselves. The opponent's reinforcements have arrived. It's a disgrace for a ghost to collude with people. Kibutsuji Muzan let out a low growl. Sumyu raised his head, looked at the other party, and said flatly, "It's better than you, ghost." While speaking, Sumyu's body has already recovered, as if he had never been injured. Sumyu picked up the Nichiren blades with the palm of his hand again, brushing the blade lightly with his palm. There were already many gaps in the blade. This Nichiren blades, who has been fighting with him for a long time, after this battle, is afraid that it will come to an end. A wave of sadness permeated the air. This is what he can feel as a sword ghost, the sadness from the sword, unable to accompany the master to continue walking. But at the same time there was another slight tremor trembling in the sword. At the last moment, I am still in the battle, even if I leave, I am happy. Putting the sword across the eyebrow sword, a slight trembling sound came out. Rustling. There was the sound of falling leaves blowing in the forest. Kochu fluttered, raised colorful butterfly pattern feathers. A girl with black hair, wearing emerald green Kochu hairpins with pink edges rushed over. Style, Kochu Kanae. Whoosh whoosh. As the sound fell, a man with green pupils of different colors on the left and gold on the right, black mid-length hair, wearing black and white striped feathers, and a male white snake named Duan, wrapped around his neck fell down. Snake column, Yihei Fennel. Then Kasumi column, Tokito Muichiru. Love pillar, Kanroji Mitsuri Wind pillar, Shinazugawa Sanemi. Yenju, Rengoku Kajiro. All the pillars arrived and completely surrounded Kibutsuji Muzan. Since losing to Ji Guoyuan, Kibutsuji Muzan has been carefully hiding in the dark. Rarely shows body shape. His traces have never been truly grasped by the ghost-killing squad. But today all the pillars of the Demon Slayer squad have arrived. Completely surrounded him. If you think so, you will kill it. Kibutsuji Muzan opened his blood-red ghost eyes. His gaze first glanced at each of the pillars, and finally settled on Sumyu. You guys can't kill me. Or, it should be said, I can kill you all by myself. He spoke coldly. Hey hey. Sumyu looked up and laughed. It only needs to drag you down for half a day, and bathe in the sun. Back then, Ji Guoyuan's sword never killed you, but when the sun bathes, you will have nowhere to hide. It is true that now all the pillars, combined, plus him, may not be Kibutsuji Muzan's opponent, or can only barely split 50-50. But if you just drag Kibutsuji Muzan into the daytime, it's still okay. Presumably, you all have the desire to die, right? He turned his head and looked at a pillar. Compared with what I expected, these pillars, from the ghost killing squad, were much later in the evening. Obviously, even if he passed the news, these pillars never fully believed in him, otherwise, it would be impossible to come so late. However, it's still here. All the pillars tightly held the hilt of Nichiren blades, and what burst out in eyes was the heart of death. Becoming a member of the ghost killing team, almost none of them will not be persecuted by ghosts and lose their long-standing happiness. The resentment towards Kibutsuji Muzan is almost engraved in his bones. Wait until the sun comes, I'm afraid you won't be able to live. Kibutsuji Muzan stared at Sumyu coldly. You, like me, are ghosts. Hey. Sumyu looked at Kibutsuji Muzan, shrugged lightly. Then I will die with you. Very plain words, but it made Kibutsuji Muzan's pupils froze together at once. At the same time, Su-Emu's footsteps flickered, and his figure flew to the side of flower column, Kochu Kanae, standing together with all the pillars. Kochu Kanae turned his head and gave him a gentle smile. Su-Mu also smiled lightly, but her eyes flickered slightly. There is also a calculation in his heart. He really hopes that Kibutsuji Muzan will not run away this time. As long as you don't run, with the determination of the pillar, of the demon killing team, you will definitely risk your life, regardless of casualties, and drag Kibutsuji Muzan until daytime. But to drag Kibutsuji Muzan into the daytime, I am afraid that none of the pillars present will survive. And this exactly what I expected. He never forgot that he is still a ghost now. Both the ghost killing team and Kibutsuji Muzan are threatening his existence. From the very beginning, Sumyu never forgot his identity as a ghost. Both the ghost killing squad and Kibutsuji Muzan are threatening his existence. The ghost killing team is good enough to be unable to suppress him with absolute force, but Kibutsuji Muzan is different. The original ghost in this world is incredibly powerful. In the battle just now, he has already learned how powerful Kibutsuji Muzan is. From the beginning to the end, he was almost suppressed and beaten, almost completely powerless to fight back, if not relying on the immortal body from the ghost and the powerful healing power of the ghost. I'm afraid, he can't hold on until now. However, although not Kibutsuji Muzan's opponent, Sumyu was not too disappointed. After all, Kibutsuji Muzan is the first ghost who has survived for thousands of years, the absolute ruler of ghosts, and a self-proclaimed, infinitely close to perfect creature, is a boss-level existence standing on the highest peak in the world. Sumyu was able to resist this kind of boss-level existence in a short period of time, and his progress can be described as fast. Give him some more time, and he might not be able to fight Kibutsuji Muzan head-on. Now his approximate strength should be at the level of Pillar, but because of the characteristics of ghosts, he is stronger than Pillar, so it is difficult to kill. Coupled with almost immortality and strong healing ability, it may not be possible to suppress the Pillar by force, but it belongs to that kind of extremely difficult existence. What's more, he can still bask in the sun. There is probably no existence in this world that can kill him in an instant. All that can be done is probably to seal him. Standing among the pillars, Sumyu quietly watched the ghost dancer Muzan. At this moment, Kibutsuji Muzan's expression can be described as very rich. He wanted to stay and kill all the pillars of the ghost-killing team, but he was also worried about his own danger. Kibutsuji Muzan's personality is tyrannical and cruel. But in essence, this ghost is extremely timid and afraid of death. It can be said that he attaches great importance to his own safety. This is because even a ghost of the old monster level who has survived for thousands of years has extremely few dependents. Whether it is the control of secular power or the suppression of the ghost-killing team, almost nothing has been achieved. It can be said that the life was a failure. The only formidable ability may be escaping. For thousands of years, except for the battle about Jigyuan, there has never been any situation that threatened his life. But now, there is a hateful. Kibutsuji Muzan looked at Sumyu, who was with all the pillars, with a gloomy and terrifying face, and the 9 whips swayed slightly behind his back. Everyone, the opportunity to kill Kibutsuji Muzan is here, let's fight to the death. It was the pillar of rock, Hamejima Kiyome, who spoke. For the demon killing team, the chance of being able to face Kibutsuji Muzan is very slim. Today, if they can desperately drag Kibutsuji Muzan into the daytime and wait for the sunlight to shine, even if all the pillars present are gone, it will be for them, it is also worth it. All the eyes of the pillars were fixed on Kibutsuji Muzan, all with the heart of death. Feeling the heart of the deadly battle from the pillars, Kibutsuji Muzan stepped back. His own strength completely surpassed all the pillars. But obviously he didn't want to fight the pillars to the death. In Kibutsuji Muzan's view, ghosts have a long life, but they don't want to bet their lives with these firefly-like beings. You ghost. Don't you naively think that the ghost-killing team will allow your existence? While retreating, Muzan, the dancer, stared coldly at Su Mu standing among the pillars. Open your eyes and take a good look. Look at the way these pillars look at you. The hatred from the soul can hardly be concealed. To associate with these firefly-like creatures. You are a disgrace to a ghost. Su Mu is indifferent. He glanced to the side lightly. Wind pillar. Shinazugawa Sanemi Yanzu, Rengoku Kyojuru. Almost all the pillars unconsciously looked away. Except for water column, Yorokodaki Sakanji, and flower column, Kochu Kanae. Are these so-called people really worthy of your desperation? Kibutsuji Muzan stared at Su Mu with scarlet eyes. From the moment we become ghosts, we are the same, and the essence of life has already surpassed these lifelike fireflies. Su Mu is still indifferent. The reason why the other party said this was just to provoke the relationship between him and the ghost-killing squad. But it is also true. It can be said that it was very successful. He did succeed in provoking, but he failed because, from the very beginning, Su Mu never forgot who he is now. But the difference from Kibutsuji is that Su Mu never thinks that she is a ghost even if she has the characteristics of a ghost. Even if it becomes a ghost. His will is only controlled by himself. Even if he has power beyond human beings, he can bully human beings wantonly. But he has never used this power to bully. I don't think ghosts are superior to others. He kept in mind that he was once a human being, and the beauty of being a human being. Whether it becomes a ghost or not, his own will has determined that he is a human being. One hand, at some point, took Su Mu's hand. Su Mu froze for a moment, the colorful feathers fluttered, and the Kochu hairpin flapped his wings on his long black hair. Kochu Kanae smiled softly at Su Mu, then looked up and watched the ghost dance past Muzan. Mu has never been the same as you. Kibutsuji Muzan was slightly taken aback, and then laughed loudly, hee. Human beings who believe in ghosts never end well. There was a trace of sadness on Kochu Kanae's gentle face. Indeed, as Kibutsuji Muzan said, in this world, almost no one who believes in ghosts will end well. Most of them will be swallowed by ghosts and become ghost food. The little hand clenched unconsciously. I can clearly feel the coldness of the body of Mu, the ghost. The essence is a cold-blooded creature. Hold tightly, I also have this awareness. The sound is flat, but very firm. I believe that Mu is different from ghosts like you, no matter how Mu is viewed in the eyes of others, but in Kanae's eyes, Mu has always been gentle and humble. I'm going to change that. The girl's confidence is so firm, but also so gentle. What a laughable thought. Kibutsuji Muzan's voice was cold and hoarse. One day, when you are swallowed by ghosts, I hope you still have such ridiculous thoughts. The immature human body is the favorite food of ghosts. What are you doing talking nonsense to this ghost? Since I think that I am superior to humans, I think I am noble and superior to others. What a ridiculous thing. As a human being, I have never been inferior to others. Water pillar. Yorokodaki Sakanji drew out the Nichiren blades, and the faint, rippling ripples reflected on the Tengu mask. War. In the next moment, all the pillars were shot. Breath of thunder, breath of rock, breath of flower, breath of water, breath of love, breath of fire. In an instant, all the pillars joined forces, gathered from all directions, and finally condensed into one point. Boom towards that Kibutsuji Muzan. Sun containing the power of all the pillars, the powerful shock wave almost tore the air apart. Boom. A huge explosion resounded, accompanied by billowing dust and smoke. What? A mournful howl came out, but it was the snake pillar, and Iguro Obanai stepped back clutching his arms. At this moment, a large piece of flesh and blood fell off his arm. However, at the same moment, the figure of Kibutsuji Muzan also appeared floatingly, dissociated from the crowd. Apparently, Kibutsuji Muzan was not hit by the joint blow of all the pillars, just now. No one would be foolish enough to follow up with an attack that obviously contained the combined efforts of everyone. Snake pillar. Iguro Obanai stared at Kibutsuji Muzan coldly with his green pupils on the left and gold on the right, and the white snake, Disium pill, wrapped around his neck also wriggled around his injured arm. The other pillars also took advantage of this to attack. Rock pillar. Himejima Kiyome acted first. His Nichiren blades are very special. It is a broad axe and meteor hammer connected by a long chain. It contains orangutan sand iron, with extremely high purity and unusually heavy. But in the hands of Himejima Kiyome it was as nimble as a whip. Wherever it passed, trees snapped and rocks shattered. Very powerful. But this powerful attack fell on Kibutsuji Muzan's arms that looked like thorns, and the invincible meteor hammer failed to break through Kibutsuji Muzan's defense. The most powerful, rock pillar, is like this, let alone. Even though there is a pillar that can injure Kibutsuji Muzan, under the strong recovery power, it only takes a short time for the recovered injuries to be mixed. The battle was one-sided from the very beginning. And now, Li Tinliang is still a long time away. It is still unknown whether all the pillars can really drag Kibutsuji Muzan until dawn. But what is certain is that all the pillars can persist until dawn, and there will be absolutely no one in 10. At the same moment, Su Mu moved. Relying on his evil spirit body, he always appears in the most dangerous places, blocking the strongest attack from Kibutsuji Muzan with his own body. He saved the critical blow that killed Pillar many times, and even used himself as a shield to block the attack from Kibutsuji Muzan for Pillar. Kibutsuji Muzan waved the 9 whips behind him, like the autumn wind sweeping the fallen leaves. Anything in front of him would be torn apart by the whip-like thing behind him. In an instant, Rengoku Mojiro, the former flame pillar, was beaten and flew backwards, and a large piece of flesh and blood fell off his body. It can be described as extremely bloody, from the beginning. All the pillars are no match for Kibutsuji Muzan. Come with confidence. But when we really got in touch with Kibutsuji Muzan, the pillars really felt the horror of Kibutsuji Muzan. It can be said that if not for thousands of years, Kibutsuji Muzan's eyes have never been too much on the ghost-killing team. I am afraid that even if the ghost-killing team relies on continuous recruitment, they will not perish. I am afraid that now, they will only be 2 or 3 cats. Just a miserable situation. The more they felt the strength of Kibutsuji Muzan, the more intense the heart of the people to fight to the death. After all, in the future, it would be impossible to find a chance to encircle Kibutsuji Muzan again. If they really lost today, I am afraid that they will never be able to gather such a strong lineup. Kibutsuji Muzan growled slightly, showing his mouth full of fangs. The scarlet eyes stared at everyone, so cold and penetrating. While attacking everyone, he was also paying attention to the changes of time. He won't let these people drag until dawn. Kibutsuji Muzan's eyes could not help falling on the bloody Su Mu. This hateful ghost has blocked the fatal blows for these pillars 3 times in a row, otherwise, he would have killed 3 pillars now. Without him, the current situation would never be what it is now. It's disgusting. Kibutsuji Muzan let out a low growl. Su Mu grinned, revealing a bloody smile, and placed the sword in front of his eyebrows. Now, this Nichiren blades has accompanied him to the present, and cracks have appeared. Collapse, only in an instant. But the characteristics from the sword ghost make this sword seem to have a spirituality, and at this moment it emits a soul-like cry of joy. In front of Chinshin, he slashed at Kibutsuji Muzan one after another, but was easily blocked by the 9 pipe whips behind him. Every time a sword is cut, the crack of the Nichiren blades in Su Emu's hand will speed up 1 step. At the same time, Kibutsuji Muzan will not just defend. Not only the 9 whips on his back are as flexible as human hands, but every time the thorn whip on his arm is swung, it almost sends out a thunderous blow like lightning. When Su Mu is attacking, he will also be attacked by Kibutsuji Muzan. At some point, the clothes on his body were almost torn into strips by various attacks. The flesh and blood on the body no longer knows how many places have been severely injured. From birth to now, he can say that he has never suffered such a serious injury or experienced such severe pain. If it is not that he is a ghost body, he is an immortal body, and the ghost's super healing ability allows him to heal his injuries in a short time. Otherwise, at this moment, he is already dead and cannot die anymore. However, with his meat shield in front, it did greatly ease the pressure on the pillars. To become a pillar, no one is worthy of being underestimated. They are all well-rounded heroes. At the beginning, maybe they are not used to cooperating with ghosts, but after just a few fights, they can achieve what they want. Even though wounds were constantly appearing on Su Emu's body, all the pillars worked together to slowly suppress Kibutsuji Muzan. Although the pillars are constantly injured. Even, former Naruto Kuwajima Jigoru has been killed. Kuwajima Jigoru, the short, old man with a cane, a large scar on his face, and a prosthetic right foot, was directly dismembered on the spot because he could not escape a stabbing whip from Kibutsuji Muzan. This old man didn't die because his disciple Du Yu became a cannibal and committed seppuku to apologize for his sins, and died with humiliation. Instead, at this moment, he died in battle with Kibutsuji Muzan in a dignified manner. When he was about to die, his breath of thunder one-shaped thunderbolt flash super speed also cut out, directly cutting off 3 whips on the back of Kibutsuji Muzan. Although, within a short time, the 3 pipe whips that were chopped off had to be remixed. But the newly grown whip is obviously much weaker than the previous one. And everyone also seized the opportunity that Kuwajima Jigoru exchanged for his life. The powerful offensive continued round after round. Slowly, the situation was moving from a situation that was unfavorable to the ghost-killing team to a balance point, and even broke the balance. Moreover, with the death of Kuwajima Jigoru, the determination to fight to the death in the eyes of everyone has also become stronger. Even though he could still suppress the pillars, Kibutsuji Muzan already had the intention of retreating in his heart. He was almost unafraid of death, unafraid of attack like a moth to a flame, and the figure of that man appeared in his mind involuntarily. He brought infinite shadows to himself. It is also a nightmare that Kibutsuji Muzan cannot break through in his life. The idea of escape, run, began to emerge in my mind. And just at this time, an extremely powerful force coming from the house of the Kamado family behind itself came from the sun like energy. Tamayo's surgery is over. Kamado Tanjiro woke up. At some point, Kamado Tanjiro, who was covered in gauze, stood at the door with an axe in his hand. Breathe surging. Breath of the sun. Inherited the will from the original swordsman. It was the inheritor of the will of the living beings who were comparable to gods and Buddhas standing at the door. Especially the Nichiren flower paper earrings worn by his ears are under the breath of his day. It seems that the person who is comparable to the living gods and Buddhas has really descended. Escape. Almost instantly, the dance left only this thought in Muzan's mind. Even though the strength is strong, but the heart is cowardly after all. At the same moment, the crowd also attacked with all their might, but Kibutsuji Muzan obviously had no intention of continuing to fight with the crowd. His body disintegrated into more than 1,800 pieces and scattered in all directions. All the pillars worked together to cut off only 800 fragments, but still allowed 1,000 fragments to escape. And with Kibutsuji Muzan gone, Kamado Tanjiro, who was standing at the door, also fainted. Although everyone tried their best to stop them, they still failed to stop Kibutsuji Muzan from escaping. After losing nearly 800 fragments, Kibutsuji Muzan escaped smoothly. Back in the day, Ji Guoyuan cut off 1,500 pieces of Kibutsuji Muzan's self-split with a single sword. Now, with the joint efforts of all the pillars, it only cut off 1,000 pieces. The power of all the pillars is no match for one person. Thus, can also imagine what kind of demeanor did Ji Guoyuan Yi have in the past. No wonder Kibutsuji Muzan is still so terrified of Ji Guoyuan, a long-gone man, even after all these years. With Kibutsuji Muzan's escape, Su Mu also couldn't bear the exhaustion in his heart and knelt on the ground. At this moment, the Nichiren blades in his hand finally couldn't bear it anymore, and turned into a little bit of starlight dissipated. At the same moment, Su Mu felt the reluctance from the sword parting, and at the same time, an inexplicable joy. As far as Jien is concerned, being able to fight and die at the last moment is probably the highest honor of being a sword. Silently watching turn into light and dissipate, he looked at all the pillars, except for style column, Kochu Kanae and water column, Yorokodaki Sakanji. The other columns looked at him quite subtly. That's right, with the departure of Kibutsuji Muzan, there is only one ghost, Su Mu. The ghost killing team is a specialized ghost hunting organization. Without the Nichiren blades, without the weapon, Su Mu also retreated slightly. For him, without the common enemy of Kibutsuji Muzan, the demon killing squad is an object to be vigilant about. For Su Mu, he never puts his own life in the decision of others. Before I knew it, it was almost dawn. Kamado Tanjiro had already been carried into the house. Su Mu stood on the side of the courtyard, looking at the pillars, vigilantly. The situation of the pillars is also quite delicate. For example, water column, Yorokodaki Sakanji, and style column, Kochu Kanae leaned towards him to protect him. For example, Shinazugawa Sanemi in Wind Pillar, Hamejima Kiyome in Yenju, Rengoku Mojiro in Fengyenju, and Tokito Muichiru in Shaju, have a certain killing intent in their eyes. And for example, Love Pillar, Kanroji Mitsuri, Flame Pillar, Rengoku Kyojuru, Snake Pillar, Iguro Obanai, these few were fatally attacked by Kibutsuji Muzan during the battle with his ghost body. Zu stood in the middle, neither approaching him nor moving towards the Zu, who was hostile to Su Mu. Confrontation generated in this moment. The situation on the scene is very delicate, and a slight touch may cause another war. Tread the sound of crisp footsteps came. Broke the silence. Nezuko walked carefully under the eyes of everyone. All the pillars stared at her, even Su Mu looked at Nezuko curiously. Being watched by so many people for the first time, Nezuko was obviously a little scared and couldn't help but stop. Nervous. Super nervous. The immature face that hadn't faded was unconsciously tensed. but quickly took another deep breath. He started to move again and came to Sumiyu. Sumiyu was slightly surprised, and stared at Nezuko with golden eyes. As long as the other party is not blind, it should be impossible not to see the ghost horns on his head. The identity of a ghost cannot be hidden, and through Nezuko's trembling little hands, it can be clearly felt that the little girl is still a little scared. Obviously very scared, but still want to come. What is Nezuko going to do? And as Nezuko walks over, Rock Pillar, Hamejima Kiyome and Wind Pillar, Shinazugawa Sanemi also held down their weapons. If Sumiyu wanted to do something unfavorable to this little girl, they would never be soft. They know that injured ghosts generally need nutritional supplements, and human beings are the best nourishment for ghosts. At this time, ghosts are extremely eager for human blood and human flesh. Here you are. The girl handed over the padded jacket behind her, holding it tightly with her little hands. Sumiyu was taken aback for a moment, and then smiled. At this moment, as far as he was concerned, the previous battle had left him quite embarrassed. There was almost no clothes left on his body, and most of them were only a few rags left. And now it was winter again. Nezuko was obviously worried that he would be frozen, so he brought the clothes over. What a silly little girl, to a ghost, such a little temperature is nothing. Thanks. Although Yigui's body doesn't really care about the cold environment, being naked doesn't suit his style. He took over Nezuko's clothes, and in the process, his fingertips touched Nezuko's skin unconsciously. Warm. And the ghost's icy fingers brought a cool feeling, making the girl let out a slight cry as if stimulated. At the same moment, the Wind Pillar, Yan Pillar, Qianyan Pillar, and Sha Pillar all violently took up their weapons. But soon, it was taken back again. Everything was a false alarm. Nezuko also seemed to realize that his actions just now were a bit too much. The little head lowered unconsciously, and the little face was flushed. She was still a child, and she had never encountered such a thing before. His heartbeat quickened all of a sudden, his eyes drifted unconsciously, wanting to escape. But at this moment, there was a burst of crisp footsteps. But Makomo came up after resting, holding the cloak in his hand, and came to Sumiyu naturally, and then helped Sumiyu tie it on. At this moment, Yan Zhu, Feng Zhu, and Qian Yan Zhu all frowned slightly. If I remember correctly, this girl should be a disciple of Water Pillar. Yorokodaki Sakanji, look at the attitudes of the two of them now. They walked a little too close. Go into the house, Yin Yang is coming out soon. Makomo raised his head, looked at the light that was gradually rising from the top of the mountain, and opened his mouth gently. Then, he took Suemyu's hand naturally, completely ignoring everyone's gaze. Nezuko tilted his head and looked at Sumiyu, who was being held by Sister Makomo, and walked into the house, and gradually, he seemed to understand something. Sumiyu walked into the room. In the room, Tamayo and Yushiru also breathed a sigh of relief. Just now, Sumiyu and the Zhu confronted each other, and they were really worried that there would be a fight. But now, it was almost daytime again, and the situation was extremely unfavorable for Wei. As for Kamado Kuiji and the children, they looked at him with both fear and gratitude. The fear was his identity as a ghost, and the gratitude was his help to the Kamado family. On the contrary, Tanjiro walked up to Sumiyu silently, knelt down on both knees. Thank you, sir, for saving my father's life. Sumiyu hurriedly helped Tanjiro up, patted Tanjiro on the shoulder, and said in a slightly joking tone, I'm a ghost. Whether Mr. is a ghost or a human, in Tanjiro's heart, he is Tanjiro's savior. Tanjiro said seriously, his ruby? Eyes were full of seriousness. For Tanjiro, it was Suemyu's appearance that saved his Kamado family. If Sumiyu hadn't appeared, Tanjiro can imagine what kind of bad news the Kamado family would face in the future after being targeted by ghosts and knowing nothing about it. Gratitude is also sincere. At the same moment, a mechanical voice without any emotion came from Suemyu's mind. Ding. Congratulations to the host. Again. In my mind, a mechanical and emotionless voice sounded in my mind again. Ding. Congratulations to the host. Kill an evil ghost and get the ghost's leg. Ghost legs. It can completely transform the thighs into ghosts. The ghosted body not only has super strong jumping ability, but also has skin as hard as Nichiren blades. Ding. Congratulations to the host. Kill one of the evil ghosts and get ghost ears. Ghost ears. It can completely transform the ears into ghosts, and the hearing of the ghosted ears is extremely sharp, and the voices from hundreds of miles away can be heard clearly. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing an evil spirit and getting. A series of voices sounded in his mind, and at the same time, he also acquired a series of abilities in an instant. As long as the mind is together, these abilities can be used by him. These beheaded evil spirits are obviously driven by the previous ghost Kibutsuji Muzan. It's a pity that at that time his attention was completely focused on Kibutsuji Muzan, so he didn't kill many evil spirits. In addition, the level of these ghosts was not high, and the abilities they obtained were also very ordinary. Even so, it is much richer than the abilities he gained from hunting and killing evil spirits with Makomo all the way these days. It can be said that with the acquisition of these abilities, one's own strength has improved and become much stronger. Wei Wei was a little happy. For him, this is really something to be happy about. And as Su Mu walked into the house, the pillars outside also entered one after another. When Zhu looked at the ghosts in the house beside Su Mu, his eyes narrowed immediately. The ghost Su Mu is still the partner of the ghost killing team, and together with the previous cooperation against the ghost ancestor Kibutsuji Muzan, even if it is a violent character like Feng Zhu, Shinazugawa Sanemi, the Zhu who wants to kill the ghost is not good, hands-on. But other ghosts are different. Almost instantly, the pupils of Wind Pillar, Shinazugawa Sanemi's eyes were covered with bloodshot eyes, and a raging killing intent rushed towards his face. Without hesitation, Shinazugawa Sanemi made his move. Breath of the Wind? Ni no type Claw Kohu Wind. In an instant, Shinazugawa Sanemi swung 4 claw-shaped wind blades in front of him, which were powerful enough to slash the blades. Tamayo has just had an operation for Kamado Tanjiro, and is a little tired at the moment. Although Tamayo is a little defensive because of the Zhu coming in, but Shinazugawa Sanemi's speed is too fast. He could only watch helplessly as the claw-shaped wind blade that was enough to slash the blade came. Master Tamayo. Yushiru's eyes were horrified, and he wanted to block this fatal blow for Master Tamayo with his body. But obviously, it was too late, and I could only watch all this with eyes wide open. Seeing that the wind blade, which was powerful enough to slash the blade, was about to blow across Tamayo's fair neck and cut off Miss Tamayo's head, a figure suddenly appeared. The golden ghost claw stretched out and grabbed the incoming wind blade. Choke. Sparks ignited in the palm of the hand. Wind Pillar. Shinazugawa Sanemi took a step back slightly, narrowing his bloodshot eyes slightly. You shouldn't care about it. Su Mu raised his head and looked at the pillar of wind, Shinazugawa Sanemi lightly. She's my friend, it's inappropriate to fight against my friend in front of me, right? She's a ghost, a damned ghost. Shinazugawa Sanemi's eyes were filled with hatred. I'm a ghost too. Su Mu replied very flatly. Why didn't you attack me? Shinazugawa Sanemi was slightly taken aback, eyes downcast. Su Mu is not only the partner mentioned by the master, but also the partner who fought with Kibutsuji Muzan before. No matter how much he hated ghosts in his heart, no matter how harsh he was in the previous battle with Kibutsuji Muzan, he couldn't accuse Su Mu too much. At the very least, without Su Mu's desperate protection, there would be at least 2 fewer Zhu present. Amitabha. Rock Pillar, Hamejima Kiyome clasped his hands together and said Abuda's name. Although Mr. is a ghost, he is different from other ghosts. Then how does Mr. Hamejima Kiyome know that Ms. Tamayo is different from other ghosts? He raised his head, his golden eyes stared at Hamejima Kiyome. Could it be that Mr. Hamejima Kiyome's eyes are blind, and his heart is also blind? Bold. Why are you talking to Lord Hamejima Kiyome like that? Shinazugawa Sanemi glared at Su Mu angrily. Although Su Mu helped them before, deep down in his heart, he always hated ghosts. Su Mu's expression was indifferent, but he said calmly, if Hamejima Kiyome hadn't lost his mind, he wouldn't even be unaware of the current scene. Everyone was slightly taken aback, including Rock Pillar, Hamejima Kiyome. Amitabha, sin is sin. Hamejima Kiyome clasped his hands and recited Buddhist scriptures. At this time, everyone also discovered that when the Kamado family looked at the 2 ghosts, Ms. Tamayo and Yushiru, they did not hate them, but very respectful and grateful. If Tamayo and Yushiru were really human-eating ghosts, obviously the current situation would not exist. Everyone was slightly silent. At this time, Tamayo also stood up and bowed slightly towards the pillars. When Tamayo was a ghost, he committed unforgivable sins and was willing to accept punishment. But immediately, Tamayo raised his head again, with a serious expression in his eyes. But, not now, without killing Kibutsuji Muzan, Tamayo would never want to go to hell. Very calm words, but also very sincere words. For Tamayo, hundreds of years ago, after being tricked by Kibutsuji Muzan into a ghost and eating his innocent son and kind husband, the sins he committed are unforgivable. It's just that she will never go to hell without killing Kibutsuji Muzan first. Everyone couldn't help being silent. Miss Tamayo has saved my life by Tanjiro. If you want to kill Miss Tamayo, please step over my dead body first. A slightly hoarse speaker sounded. It was Kamado Tanjiro who didn't know when it sounded faintly. Everyone's eyes fell on Kamado Tanjiro involuntarily. Just now, just because of the appearance of this person, Kibutsuji Muzan ran away in panic as if he had seen something terrible. At that time, they felt that this person was unusual. At this moment, if you look closely, you can clearly feel a powerful deterrent coming from him. Its deterrent power is almost equal to that of Himejima Kiyome, the strongest pillar, and rock pillar, present. There is no doubt that this is a strong man who is not inferior to the pillar, and even, in the pillar, he is also a top existence. It is hard to imagine that other than the ghost killing squad, there are such powerful people in this world. With the addition of Kamado Tanjiro, the situation suddenly became delicate. After a long silence, it ended with a long Buddha's name. Amitabha, pillar of rock. Himejima Kiyome clasped his hands together, tears streaming down his face at some point. This matter needs to be decided by the master. But before, I also ask you to find a safer place. There is no longer any place to stay here. Himejima Kiyome spoke. Although Kibutsuji Muzan has escaped, no one knows whether the other party will make a comeback. Moreover, if Kibutsuji Muzan gathers 12 Kazuki, even if all the pillars work together, it will only be possible. This place is not a place to wait. Kamado Tanjiro couldn't help looking at Sumiyu. Although Sumiyu is a ghost, but for some reason, Kamado Tanjiro still can't help but think of Sumiyu first and listen to the other party's opinions. It's really not suitable to stay here. Sumiyu glanced at Takeo, Mao, and Hanako who were hiding behind Kamado Iji, and said lightly. Although, now Kamado Tanjiro has awakened, and after Tamayo's treatment, Kamado Tanjiro should not die as early as in the anime. And there is Kamado Tanjiro, who holds the breath of the sun, and inherits the will of Jikuni. I believe that with Kibutsuji Muzan's cautious character, it will be easy to come here. But in the final analysis, Kamado Tanjiro is not a swordsman, and cannot exert his full strength. Moreover, even if Kamado Tanjiro can display his full strength, he is not Jikuni, still not Kibutsuji Muzan's opponent. Even if Kibutsuji Muzan is cautious by nature and won't come over, his subordinates still have 12 Kazuki. The bottom string in 12 Kazuki cannot be compared to Kamado Tanjiro, but the top string is not necessarily the same, especially the top string 3, top string 2, and top string 1, which are better than 1. I am afraid that the current Kamado Tanjiro is no match for any of them. It is recommended to stay in the ghost killing squad. He said seriously. No place is a safe place to be targeted by the evil spirit Kibutsuji Muzan. If you have to find a relatively safe place, you can only go to the Demon Slayer squad. It is good. Kamado Tanjiro nodded seriously. Seeing Kamado Tanjiro nodding, Kai Himejima Kiyome also breathed a sigh of relief. After all, one can feel the strength of Kamado Tanjiro, and it is conceivable that if Kamado Tanjiro is willing to join the Demon Slayer team, it can be said that the Demon Slayer team will add another pillar-level master. Moreover, watching Kibutsuji Muzan's attitude towards this person before, it can be said that Kamado Tanjiro will be very helpful in dealing with Kibutsuji Muzan in the future. Such a person, Himejima Kiyome is absolutely unwilling to let go. If possible, we will try our best to pull him into the ghost killing squad. Please also ask a few to accompany us back together. Pillar of Rock, Himejima Kiyome bent slightly, showing a very respectful look. Both Tamayo and Yushiru's expressions changed slightly, and reluctance was evident on their faces. After all, they are ghosts, and if they went to the headquarters of the ghost killing squad, it might not be easy if they figured it out again. It is good. Sumiyu nodded. Himejima Kiyome, who was planning to spend more time, was slightly taken aback. Then he immediately came to his senses and bent down again. Thank you. Seeing that Sumiyu had already agreed, Tamayo and Yushiru could only nod no matter how reluctant they were. However, before returning to the ghost killing squad, there are still things to pack. The Kamado family wants to take away some things from home. But for the pillars, what they want to take away is the body of the former Naruto, Kuwajima Jigoru. Sumiyu stood on the windowsill, watching a group of pillars mourn in silence in front of Kuwajima Jigoru's body, and the atmosphere of sadness subconsciously shrouded. For the ghost killing squad, they have always been on the road of hunting ghosts and being killed by ghosts. More swordsmen died. The pillars, who are stronger than the ghost killing team, are not spared either. Kuwajima Jigoru is not the first pillar to be killed by a ghost, nor will he be the last. As long as Kibutsuji Muzan isn't wiped out, as long as 12 Kazuki is alive, death will never end for the Ghost Slayer squad. He watched all this silently, remembering the ending of Kuwajima Jigoru. If the strength is not enough, it will be just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Tanjiro stood behind Sumiyu, and followed Sumiyu to see the pillars, who were silently mourning outside, and could smell the sadness in the air. The boy clenched his fist unconsciously, raised his head, and looked at Su-emu's back. "Sir." Su-mu turned her head. Tanjiro was looking at him seriously. He was slightly puzzled. "Sir, will that ghost named Kibutsuji Muzan keep watching our family?" Ask very seriously. At the same time, I also want to get a real answer. This is about the path to take in the future. After a while, Su-mu nodded slightly. The Kamado family, which has inherited Ji Guoyuan's will, is destined to be the object of Kibutsuji Muzan's hatred. Even if Kibutsuji Muzan is temporarily forced to retreat, sooner or later, this ghost king lurking in the dark will do it again. Because, as long as things related to Jiguoyuan still exist in this world, for Kibutsuji Muzan, his heart will never be at peace. This is the shadow of Kibutsuji Muzan's life, or the bad news of his life, something that Kibutsuji Muzan absolutely does not allow to exist in the world. Hearing this, Tanjiro couldn't help but clench his fists. He took a deep breath, and there was a hint of fear in his eyes. In that case, Tanjiro raised his head, his eyes filled with fear. For him, there was only one way to go. Then, kill Kibutsuji Muzan. Su-emu's eyes could not help falling on Tanjiro, and he could feel the firmness of this man named Fahiro. In fact, in the anime Demon Slayer, Tanjiro did rely on his extremely firm will, went through countless pains, and finally embarked on the road to kill Kibutsuji Muzan, and finally killed Kibutsuji Muzan. But what sustains Tanjiro's forward action is the rescue of Nezuko, who turned into a ghost, and the revenge from a family that was swallowed by ghosts. But now Tanjiro obviously doesn't have that much motivation, so, will Tanjiro still have such a strong determination in the face of the difficulties ahead? Putting his hand on Tanjiro's shoulder, his golden eyes met Tanjiro's eyes. If you really go on this road, the future will be rough. Are you ready? Even if the road ahead is hell, do you still want to take this road? His words are definitely not words of intimidation. The road to killing ghosts has never been an easy task. Following his words, Tanjiro was obviously shaken, but when Tanjiro's eyes fell on his mother, his lovely brother and sister, his eyes were extremely firm. The long-established happiness that I guard will never be destroyed by ghosts. The boy's heart is so firm. Just like the boy carrying the bamboo box in the anime. Kocho House these days, Su-mu is arranged to live here. It's another morning, the beginning of the day, and the end of the day for the ghost Su-mu. For ghosts, daytime is usually the time to sleep, while night is the time to be active. I yawned. He wanted to sleep, but he couldn't help opening the window when he heard something outside. In the garden, the early Kochu Kanae appeared in the garden. Seems to have just woken up. She stretched her waist lazily, and her pink-purple eyes seemed to be slightly confused because she had just woken up. Wearing a very standard uniform of the Ghost Slayer squad, the clothes fit well, even a little tight, wrapping the girl's charm well. Covering her ruddy mouth with her small green hands, she yawned. As a swordsman, he is naturally not so delicate. The necessary training every morning is indispensable. But for women who like beauty, Kochu Kanae naturally doesn't want to exercise like those men, to develop a whole body of tendons. In that way, it will be ugly. Of course, it must look good on a man. For girls, it doesn't work. Therefore, the training must be reasonable and moderate. I heard that my sister will be back in the next 2 days. Hey, involuntary sigh. My sister is about to grow up, and I don't know who to look for in the future. As an older sister, Kochu Kanae also has to prepare snacks in advance for her younger sister's future marriage. After all, if the younger sister's character does not find a good husband, the younger sister will suffer in the future. After all, the younger sister has to find a tolerant husband. Thinking like this, I felt a little tired again, and my forehead hurt a little, and my tender little hand covered her ruddy mouth again, and yawned. Suddenly, pink eyes fell on the house in front. In the gap of the window, a pair of golden eyes flickered slightly. The golden pupils in the pink-purple eyes looked at each other in the air. In the house, Su-mu nodded to Kochu Kanae through the window. What was waiting was the girl's scream, and then she took light steps without any image, and ran away without a trace. Seeing Kochu Kanae who disappeared suddenly, Su-mu was slightly stunned, and at the same time couldn't help praising. Miss Kanae's speed is a bit faster. It's just that after seeing me, the reaction was a little big. The corner of the nearby courtyard wall. Kochu Kanae leaned his back against the wall, panting slightly, his chest rising and falling slightly. Hastily stretched out his hand and buttoned the button on the neck of the collar. Even so, when Su-mu saw his imageless appearance just now, his face turned red. Although he was a little surprised that Kochu Kanae's reaction was too big, he didn't care. He yawned, took off his coat, and fell asleep on his back on the bed. Daytime is a really bad time for ghosts. Especially today, the sunshine is surprisingly good, but for a ghost like him, it is surprisingly bad. Anyway, I feel uncomfortable all over. Therefore, for ghosts, this time is naturally a good time to sleep. With no image, he lay on the bed and fell asleep. Da da da. There was a crisp knock on the door, but no sound from inside could be heard, only the sound of steady breathing. Makomo frowned slightly with her delicate little brows. Feeling so sad. She wanted to stay up late with Mew every day, but yesterday she heard from Kanzaki Aoi, a little girl in the Kochu house, that if she stayed up late every day, her skin would become slack and she would age quickly. Makomo was so frightened that her face turned pale immediately. That night, I didn't care about being with that annoying Mew, so I slept beautifully. As soon as he woke up, Makomo felt refreshed. Looking in the mirror, his skin became whiter. After tidying up the clothes on his chest, he felt that the clothes seemed a little smaller. Okay, looked down. After waiting for a while, without waiting for a response, Makomo knew that Mew should go to sleep. So annoying. Can't you wait for Makomo to wake up and talk to Makomo before going to bed? You're like a lazy pig. While speaking, she gently pushed the door open. Squeak. The door opened. Why is this Mew so careless? He doesn't even know to close the door when he's sleeping. Makomo muttered, when Mew wakes up, he must be taught a lesson. Entering the room, I saw Suji sleeping on the bed without any image. Lazy pig. Makomo muttered and walked forward unconsciously, watching Mew, who was sleeping soundly and defenseless, frowning. You villain. This is the headquarters of the ghost killing squad. How can you be so unprepared? You know, Tamayo and Yushiru next door have been nervous all day, for fear that someone from the Ghost Slayer squad will come over and grab them with Nichiren blades. The white and tender little hand unconsciously scratched Mew's big nose. Then he scraped his little nose again. Mew's nose is so big, it must be a pig's nose. The girl covered her mouth and smiled, her eyes fell on the coat that fell off beside her. Without any hesitation, he stepped forward and folded it, put it on his nose and smelled it. It's time to wash. Slacker. Don't even know how to wash clothes. Makomo glared at Mew, who was still sleeping soundly, then found a wooden basin, put the clothes in the wooden basin, and found a mallet. Just get ready to do the laundry, but see what Mew is wearing. After hesitating for a moment, he blushed again and took off several pieces of clothes on Mew, leaving only a loincloth. Holding the wooden shed, Makomo came to the door, like a thief who has been a thief, seeing no one around, so he took small steps of da-da, and ran towards the river secretly like a little mouse. She couldn't be caught washing the brat's underwear. Sister, I'm back. There was a loud noise from the Kochu house. It was Kochu Shinobu who rushed in with Tsuyuri Kanao in his arms. Shin, you're back. Kochu Kanae greeted her, and immediately the girl was buried in her sister's arms like a milk swallow. Kochu Kanae patted Shishin on the head, full of pampering. By the way, sister, where does that big bad guy live now? After a while, as if thinking of something, Kochu Shinobu raised his little head from his sister's embrace. He's in the next room and should be sleeping now. Thinking of what happened this morning, Kochu Kanae blushed slightly. Kochu Shinobu didn't notice her sister's face, but immediately broke away from her sister's embrace, took Tsuyuri Kanao's little hand next to her, and with a small face, walked angrily to the place where the big bad guy was resting. Kanao, Sister Shinobu will help you teach that bad man who ran away without saying hello to you today. Your sister, Forbearance, help you decide today. While speaking, the girl's pretty purple eyes unconsciously narrowed, forming an extremely beautiful slit. Damn bastard. When you left without saying goodbye, without saying hello, you really didn't pay attention to Miss Forbearance. Come here this time. Let's see how you explain to me. And also, Miss Shinobu is not a nanny, so why did you entrust such a small Kanao to Miss Ben's care? Kochu Shinobu was holding Tsuyuri Kanao's little hand and walking towards Mew's room, muttering angrily. Tsuyuri Kanao was dragged forward by Kochu Shinobu, looked at Kochu Shinobu with big eyes in confusion, as if he didn't understand why Kochu Shinobu was so angry. As if feeling something, Kochu Shinobu couldn't help turning his head, looking at Kanao with wide open eyes, flicking his finger on Kanao's beautiful little forehead angrily. What are you looking at? Miss Forbearance is upholding justice for you today. Otherwise, in the future, you will really marry that big bad guy. With your character, you still won't be bullied by that bad guy. She blinked her big eyes, as if she couldn't understand Kochu Shinobu's words. Hateful. Seeing Kanao's scene, Kochu Shinobu put his hands on his hips angrily, and then flicked Kanao's small forehead again with his tender little hand. You child, so stupid, and that ghost, so smart, in the future will definitely you are very good at it. You can't be smarter. Kanao blinked his big purple eyes, and looked at Sister Shinobu in confusion. Oh, forget it, you are hopeless. Kochu Shinobu clutched his forehead and sighed slightly. However, he immediately regained his strength and clenching his fists. As your sister, Enin, how could I watch my sister being bullied? Don't worry, with Sister Ninja here, I will definitely help my Kanao take care of that villain. Damn. While talking, I have already arrived at Suemu's room. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Knock on the door. No sound. The bad ghost doesn't live in this room? Kochu Shinobu was slightly surprised, but my sister clearly said that she was in this room. After hesitating for a moment, he exerted a slight force on his palm. Squeak, the door opened. The door was not locked. Is it really not in the room? Kochu Shinobu was slightly surprised. But at this moment, Kanae, who has been held by Kochu Shinobu for a long time, raised her head, and her purple star eyes sparkled. Before Kochu Shinobu could react, Suyuri Kanao broke away from Kochu Shinobu's hand, and then, with quick small steps, ran towards the house. Then he threw himself on the bed. Sumu, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly felt a heavy weight on his chest, and opened his eyes in a daze. The first thing I saw was Suyuri Kanao blinking with big purple eyes and a pretty little face. His fiancé. Kanao is here. His eyes were pleasantly surprised, his hand stretched out from under the quilt, and naturally scratched Suyuri Kanao's small nose. Kanao seemed to like his fiancé scratching his little nose, and his eyelashes trembled slightly like a small brush. The delicate little face unconsciously had a slightly beautiful arc. Looking at Suyuri Kanao's expression at this moment, it is much richer than when he left from MT. After all, at that time, Kanao's expression was always very stiff, and he couldn't express his preferences at all, and he couldn't show his own emotions, but now, he can already express some. It seems that Miss Shino took good care of you during my absence. He said it unconsciously. Of course. Next to it, a proud and clear voice sounded. Su-mu turned her head, only to find that Kochu Shinobu was also in her room. At this moment, the young girl stood there quite arrogantly with her small arms folded over her chest. Like her older sister, she wears the standard Ghost Slayer uniform. Because of her slender waist, even the tight Ghost Slayer uniform looks a bit loose. Her fair face and her lips were also slightly shiny. Except now it's a little shorter, the rest are simply perfect. Look at what to look at, and then gouge out your eyes. Kochu Shinobu stared fiercely at him with big purple eyes. Of course, if you don't have such a vicious tongue, it would be better to be gentle. If only she had such a gentle personality as her sister. Su-mu shook her head. You have such a poisonous mouth, be careful not to get married. You can't get married. Kochu Shinobu's brow bulged at the moment of intuition. This ghost is really annoying. You should learn from your sister, how gentle she is. Su-mu hugged Kanao in his arms and muttered nonchalantly. Hateful. Kochu Shinobu was also annoyed by Su-emu's words, and picked up the Nichiren blades directly with his little hand. Without hesitation, Nichiren blades slashed at Su-mu. The cold blade almost stopped in front of Su-emu's nose. Why don't you hide? Kochu Shinobu was furious. You can't really chop. Su-mu said indifferently, and at the same time patted Kanao's little head in his arms, letting her get off the bed. Kanao listened to his words very much, got out of bed immediately, and stood obediently beside the bed. Su-mu originally planned to lift the quilt and come out. But just ready to lift the quilt. Immediately it just doesn't feel right. Chilly. Bow your head, take a look slightly. Where are my clothes? Except for the loincloth, there is nothing left. Turning his head, he looked at Kochu Shinobu again. The opponent had already hit Nichiren blades, with his small hands on his chest and his head proudly raised. Su-mu felt her forehead bulging. Miss Shinobi, how could you do such a thing? He never expected that Miss Kochu Shinobu would actually do something like take off a man's clothes. Although as a man, it's okay to wear less, but unknowingly, a girl took off the boy's clothes. It's still a shame. Kochu Shinobu was also slightly taken aback, and said in a slightly surprised tone, What did I do? Seeing this stubborn Kochu Shinobu, Su-mu stood up without hesitation. Look, don't you know what you did? See it clearly? Kochu Shinobu's purple eyes widened instantly. Immediately, red-faced election, you rascal, let out a cry. Almost without hesitation, he covered his eyes with his small hands, like a fertilized bunny, and ran outside in panic. Because, I didn't notice the facade, and when I was about to go out, my little head hit the door panel all of a sudden. Puff. He fell to the ground, but Kochu Shinobu just patted his sore butt and ran out in a panic. You rascal, rascal, shameless. The crisp voice echoed leisurely, revealing the girl's feeling of despair. The angry voice from Kochu Shinobu kept coming from the Kochu house, and Mikomo, who just came back from washing clothes by the river, felt a little strange. Who is so bold as to provoke Kochu Shinobu? Mikomo tilted his head slightly, not wanting to understand. However, the small eyes glanced around secretly, after confirming that there was no one around, then quietly came to the yard, quickly dried the clothes, tidied up his own clothes, and then went to the pasture like a normal person. Go to the room. As soon as he entered the room, he heard the chattering voice of Mew. Mew actually woke up. The girl's eyes couldn't help but brighten up. Just about to go in, I heard Mew muttering. This Miss Ninja is really a hooligan. She took off my clothes and even called me a hooligan. It's really, really bad. Hearing the words of Mew, Mikomo felt his skin burn for a while, because it was Mikomo who took off the clothes of Mew, not Kochu Ren. Then Mikomo is not a female hooligan. No, no, no. Mikomo's little head immediately shook like a rattle. Mikomo is not a female hooligan. Mikomo just saw that the other party's clothes were dirty, and took them out to wash. Yes, that's it. Mikomo is not so mean-spirited. But when I think of the way I took off the Mew clothes before. Mikomo's little face suddenly turned red again. Kanao, turn your head away quickly, I can't look at it anymore. Su Mew got into the bed again, covered her body with the quilt, and then opened her mouth to Chanaping, who was watching him with wide eyes. Although Suyuri Kanao is his fiancé, but now, Kanao has not grown up yet, so he has to be a little scrupulous. Or raise it again. By the way, Kanao, you can't learn from that Kochu Shinobu, you are my good girl, you can't learn from Miss Shinobu. At the same time, Su Mew never forgets that flowers fall in the mountains, and Chanai Ping. Kanao listened to his words very much, and immediately turned his back. I don't know if it was an illusion, but Su Mew faintly felt a shy blush on Kanao's pretty face. It seems that Kanao is shy. But right away, Su Mew shook her head. Suyuri Kanao had already shut down her feelings due to her childhood experience. She was like a marionette, so she couldn't be so shy. Shaking her head, Su Mew hid under the blanket and started changing her clothes. Wearing a rather loose clothes, Su Mew got out from under the blanket. Looking at Suyuri Kanao, who was still behind his back, Su Mew patted the other person's head. Okay. Kanao just turned around and looked at him with big purple eyes. Stretching out his hand, he scraped his little nose, touching his fingers warmly, it was cool and moist. Then, he pressed Kanao's small shoulders with both hands, making Kanao spin a circle like a spinning top. The slim figure has a panoramic view. Well, I haven't seen you for a few days. Kanao seems to have gained some weight. From the white and pale face at the beginning, to now, the small face has become rosy and rosy, like a small apple, which makes people want to bite. That's right, it seems that Miss Shinobu has taken good care of Kanao during my absence. Su Mew nodded in satisfaction. This is my fiancée, my future wife, who needs to be raised well. No, I still feel a little thin, so I need to eat more. Su Mew leaned on her chin, looking at Kanao, who was obediently standing in front of her, thinking. Although her figure became more and more slender and slim, she was still a little thinner. It would be nice if she was a little fatter. By the way, have you tried hard to practice the breathing method recently? Kanao immediately nodded his head heavily. Then try to attack me. Su Mew pointed at Kanao. Suyuri Kanao hesitated slightly on his ruddy face, as if he was worried about hurting his fiancée. Don't worry, I'm a ghost, I'm not that easy to get hurt. Su Mew doesn't care. Suyuri Kanao just nodded. Breathe with full focuses in an instant. The girl's demeanor seemed to have changed, and she punched her with a small hand, accompanied by the sound of howling wind. Su Mew's eyes lit up involuntarily, and she dodged sideways slightly to avoid the blow. The breeze came along with the wind, and the girl's toes touched the ground, and suddenly she had a whirlwind leg. The slender calf swept across the air, and at this moment, there was a faint sound of breaking through the air. Su Mew raised his hand, the slender calf hit his arm. An extremely powerful soreness came from his arm, making his eyes brighten, and it could hurt his arm. It can be imagined that the girl's kick can directly break through a tree that is as thick as a bowl. With one foot blocked, the girl flipped in the air again, like a dancing kochu, she invaded in an instant, her white and tender fist hit like a whirlwind. While dodging, Su Mew would sometimes block it with her hand. The golden eyes are getting brighter and brighter. Kanao seems to have changed from an obedient little girl to a majestic wartime girl. Exquisite eyebrows, purple eyes, pretty face, beautiful like the most blooming flowers, at this moment, in front of him, showing the beauty of a girl to her heart's content. Not bad. While defending, Sumyu nodded. Unknowingly, Kanao has improved so much. What a hard-working girl. Call. A strong wind came, and the girl waved her fist and hammered him in the face. However, this time, Sumyu didn't hide, but just watched with blinking eyes. The whistling wind stopped at the tip of his nose, and the girl's small white fist stopped in front of his nose. The girl tilted her head, as if she was a little surprised why her fiancé suddenly stopped hiding. He stretched out his hand, gently held Kanao's small fist, and then patted Kanao's small head. Kanao's beautiful purple eyes blinked, and the slightly misty eyelashes were like a small brush, with a little sparkle. The girl's face is still the same as before, and the expression on her face still has a bit of numbness. But unknowingly, there is also a little more fireworks. At least, today's girls have their own wishes. It's really a happy thing. Kanao is already great and great. He squatted down and shaved the girl's pretty little nose. Although I don't know why Kanae has improved so fast, but what is certain is that you should work hard at ordinary times, right? The girl didn't respond, and she didn't seem to know how to respond, but her purple eyes blinked. It seems to say that Kanao has been working very hard and studying very hard. But, patted Kanao's little head again. Take a good rest. After all, what about when Kanao is still growing? The girl's purple eyes blinked, and they seemed to be a little empty, but there was a hint of emotion in them. For Suyuri Kanawo, the words of her fiancé are like a soft spring breeze gently blowing in her heart. It was like water drops falling on the surface of a lake, causing little ripples in her dry heart. For a girl's closed heart, what to do? Just try to be a useful person to your fiancé. If it is useful, it will not be discarded. Just like the useless Kanao would be sold by parents. So, Enhu has been working hard. Seeing Suyuri Kanawo obediently standing in front of her, Sumyu expressed her relief. Come here so early today, have you eaten yet? He asked casually. I didn't expect Kanao to answer at first, but I didn't expect the other party to shake his head. He looked at the fruits on the table in the room. Sumyu went straight to the door. Click. The door closed immediately. As soon as he arrived at the door, Mikomo, who was hiding behind the wall, patted his small chest in shock, and was almost discovered just now. But immediately it felt wrong. Is this bad ghost closed? Carefully moving his steps, he gently pushed the door open. The door is locked. In broad daylight, what was that villain, Mew, doing locking the door and leaving Chanaping in the house? This beast, Kanao is so small. The bad thought popped up in Mikomo's little head. At this moment, Sumyu, who had locked the door, also turned her head, looked at Kanao looking into his big purple eyes, shrugged her shoulders slightly. Well, don't want someone to disturb our two-person world? Someone? Excuse me? Mikomo's ears perked up. Is he talking about her? The small mouth suddenly puffed up angry. In the room, Sumyu had already sat at the table, and then waved to Kanao. Kanao was very obedient, and ran to him obediently with small steps. Sumyu patted her thigh. Kanao sat on it sensibly. Holding Kanao in her arms, Sumyu peeled a grape on the table. Kanao, open your mouth. Kanao's rosy little mouth opened. A grape was stuffed into Kanao's mouth in one fell swoop. Big purple eyes squinted and chewed. Open your mouth again. Another grape was stuffed into Kanao's mouth. You little one, you need to eat more fruit, you know? This thing is very beautiful. While Sumyu began to feed her fiancé, she began to educate her fiancé endlessly. This is my future wife that should be cultivated well. If the training is crooked, then the back house will not be peaceful. Thinking like this, he began to chatter about the future education of his fiancé. Suyuri Kanawa opened his big purple eyes, listened carefully to his fiancé's education, and nodded seriously from time to time. Squeak. There was a crisp sound from the window, and Mikomo, who had just sneaked into the window, was instantly followed by two pairs of eyes. Mikomo was a little embarrassed. She originally wanted to sneak in to see what that bad ghost, Mew, was doing in the room. If she really did something bad, she must stop it. Not only to stop it, but also to kill him, to educate the Mew. It is wrong for you to do that. Only it was discovered just after entering. So embarrassing. Some unnaturally smoothed out the black hair that did not exist on the chest, and took a few small steps. Well, the door is closed. I thought no one was there, so I went through the window and came in. Come over. Sumyu beckoned. Mikomo moved his steps unnaturally, pinching the dress with his small hands, and walked over with a blushing face. Zhao Didi's small face was flushed with blush, which reflected the girl's white skin even more. Sit. Su Mu pointed to the stool opposite. Makomo shyly followed Su Mu's instructions and sat down on the opposite bench. Makomo doesn't know why he listened to this ghost, but he felt that the ghost spoke so domineeringly, and then naturally I listened. Sitting on the bench, I was a little shy, obviously a little uncomfortable. Open your mouth. Su Mu put on a tiger face. The rosy little mouth opened. A peeled grape suddenly appeared in his mouth. Baha, baha. So sweet. Then he blinked his big eyes, and his beautiful eyelashes blinked slightly, sending out a strong signal, that is, I still want to eat, so hurry up and give it to me. Open your mouth. Kanao also opened his mouth, and Manzo also opened his mouth. But only one grape was picked. After hesitating for a moment, Su Mu took a bite. The two small mouths froze. Then, Su Mu naturally spat out the grape that was split in half by his teeth. One person and a half share the past. A good day starts with feeding Makomo and Suyuri Kanao. Time passed slowly. Su Mu took a short break at the Kochu house. During this period, I also met other girls from Kochu house. Like Kanzaki Aoi. Well, she is not a nurse at the Kochu house yet, she is trying to become a reserve member of the ghost killing squad, a hardworking trainer every day. There are also a few girls who are younger than Kanao, Xiaocheng, Zhaoqing and Xiaonaho. These are the future nurses of Kochu house. Now, of course, these are brats. At the beginning, these little kids were very afraid of him. After all, is he a ghost? However, after getting in touch gradually, I often like to pester him. Mainly to hear his story. Well, since Su Mu told these little girls the story of Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai, these little girls pestered him every day, wanting to hear the story behind. Not only these little girls, but even Kochu Shinobu and Kochu Kanae couldn't help sneaking over to listen every time. And during this period, after the Ghost Slayer team has dealt with the aftermath of the former Naruto, Kuwajima Jigoru, as the Master, Yubayashiki Kagaya. Ready to reconvene, pillar meeting. Originally, this was a normal thing for Zu. But this column meeting is obviously different from previous years. At night, little stars. When Kochu Shinobu came to Su Mu and invited him to hold a column meeting. Su Mu was slightly taken aback. After all, the pillar meeting is a meeting between the high-level pillars of the ghost killing team. It is an extremely confidential matter, and the people who participated are all pillars of the ghost killing team. Unexpectedly, he was invited to participate in this meeting. You know, he is a ghost. You sure? Su Mu looked at Kochu Shinobu and frowned slightly. This kind of meeting involving the high-level members of the ghost killing team, the ghost killing team's people invited him, a ghost, to participate, which was beyond his expectations. It's the Master Kagaya who fulfilled the demands of everyone, and at the same time, wants to invite you to join the siege team. Kochu Shinobu said in a low voice. Not only did he invite him to the pillar meeting, but also a ghost to join the ghost killing squad? Su Mu was a little speechless, and at the same time, he also admired the decision of the Master, Yubayashiki Kagaya, to invite a ghost to join the ghost hunting organization. Such a decision is not something ordinary people can make. A little carelessness may cause the entire ghost killing team to be burned. What a decisive leader. Su Mu couldn't help nodding. It's no wonder that the demon killing team is obviously not as strong as 12 Kazuki, but they can always suppress the raging ghosts in this world. Let's go. Kochu Kanae appeared at some unknown time, standing in the distance and speaking quietly. Su Mu turned her head and looked at Kochu Shinobu beside her. Kochu Shinobu turned his head unnaturally. Forbearance, the seniority is still young, so I can't participate in the Juhi meeting. Seemingly seeing Su Mu's confusion, Dai Shinai explained. Su Mu understood that the current Kochu Shinobu has not yet become a worm pillar, just like the current Tomioka Giyu, who is still working hard to learn from his senior brother in Shawushan. Seeing that the ghost, Mu, followed his sister to the Juhi conference, Kochu Shinobu's purple eyes were obviously unwilling. I'll be the new pillar soon. Clenching his fists, Kochu Shinobu said heavily. Su Mu, who was walking along the road with Kochu Kanae, suddenly turned her head to Kochu Shinobu, who was clenching her fists and encouraged with a smile. Miss Zhang will definitely become the new Zu soon. Humph. Kochu Shinobu proudly raised his head. That's natural. However, even if Miss Ninja becomes a pillar, you still have to call me senior. Kochu Shinobu's proud and delicate face suddenly stepped down. As the younger sister of style, she heard the news from her elder sister. This time, Master Yubayashiki Kagaya, The master tried hard to suggest Su-Mu to join the Ghost Slayer squad, and also wanted Su-Mu to become the new Ghost Slayer squad. The interpretation. Inviting Su-Mu to participate in the Zu-He meeting. This time is to participate in the discussion, and to ask the opinions of other Zu, and of course, the opinion of the ghost, Mu, must also be considered. Once Mu becomes the new pillar, it is true that Kochu Shinobu will become the pillar before Kochu Shinobu. Then Kochu Shinobu, who later became the pillar, will definitely call Mu a senior. Looking at Kochu Shinobu's slumped little face, Su-Mu seemed to see something very interesting, and smiled unconsciously. In front of my sister, bullying my sister like this, is Mu pretending not to see Kanae? Kochu Kanae suddenly approached, filled with fragrance, with a pair of purple eyes close in front of her eyes, with inexplicable cunning in her gentleness. Even if Mu becomes a new pillar, I will become a pillar. Before Mu, does Mu have to call me senior? The girl's face was almost close to his nose, and faintly, the fragrance from the girl's breath lingered on her face, itchy and fragrant. Heart-pounding. He stretched out his hand directly, wanting to wrap around Kochu Kanae's waist. But as soon as he stretched out his hand, the figure of Kochu Kanae has drifted away. Obviously, Kochu Chanel is already familiar with this style. Gradually familiar with just discovered what the ghost, Mu, likes to do most is molesting girls, simply a badass. Of course, apart from this flaw, in Kochu Kanae's opinion, everything else is very good. Being humble for ghosts is always polite. Even if you like to tease girls, it's enough. Most of them say something to girls who are more familiar with them to make you blush. Hot-skinned words. I don't know how Su-Mu's brain grows, how he can come up with so many words that make people blush and heartbeat. It really has a provocative girl's mouth. Especially the female disciple of Water Pillar, Yorokodaki Sakanji. These days, she has long been fascinated by this evil ghost's mouth. Even my younger sister, who hates ghosts so much, hates ghosts, and wants to kill all ghosts in the world, always likes to run to Mu. The little face felt a little hot again. Led by Kochu Kanae, he was quickly brought to a very empty courtyard. At this moment, there are already many people in the courtyard. Rock Pillar, Hamejima Kiyome, Pillar of Flame, Rengoku Kyojuru. Former Flame Pillar, Rengoku Mojuro, Wind Pillar, Shinazugawa Sanemi. Snake Column, Iguro Obanai, Love Pillar, Kanroji Mitsuri. Pillar of Sound. Yusui Tengen. The arrival of these pillars did not surprise Su-Mu. After all, it was a pillar union meeting, a meeting of pillars, and these pillars must attend. But I didn't expect that besides him, there were two other ghosts, Tamayo and Yushiru. Besides that, there is more Kamado Tanjiro. As for Tanjiro and Nezuko, obviously they were not invited. Seeing Su-Mu approaching, Tamayo's eyes were filled with joy unconsciously, and he walked over with small steps almost immediately, and stood with him. Even Yushiru, the ghost who was vaguely hostile to him before, is standing near him at this moment. After all, there are all the pillars of the ghost-killing team nearby, and there are only a few of them. You must know that each of these pillars has the strength to kill them. Moreover, almost most of the pillars looked at them with faint hostility in their eyes. This makes Tamayo and Yushiru stay here, really feeling like sitting on pins and needles. The presence of Su-Mu undoubtedly gave Tamayo and Yushiru a great sense of security. Su-Mu nodded to Tamayo and Yushiru, then looked at Kamado Tanjiro. Gentlemen. Kamado Tanjiro also came over and said hello. Although it seems that Su-Mu is much younger than him, Kamado still calls Su-Mu by the title of Sir. Su-Mu smiled at Tanjiro. Mr. Tanjiro, long time no see. He hadn't seen Kamado Tanjiro since he was taken to the Kochu house. Recently, I have been studying the materials given to me by the maternity house, so I am a little busy. Kamado Tanjiro was a little embarrassed. After all, Su-Mu was considered the benefactor of his Kamado family. Since he was saved, he hasn't thanked Su-Mu well. Since the Kamado family was brought here, the master, Yubayashiki Kagaya, personally interviewed them, first placed the Kamado family in a safe place, and then began to talk about ghosts with Ikailong. Although Kamado Tanjiro is the heir of Jikuni Anichi's will, he actually doesn't know much about ghosts these days. He has been learning about it, and at the same time, he has also started to learn swordsmanship. After all, although Kamado Tanjiro is the only ordinary person who has mastered the transparent world, besides the Demon Slayer team, the real situation is that he is still just an ordinary person. So, these days I have been studying with Rock Pillar, Hamejima Kiyome. Su-Mu smiled, and probably knew about Kamado Tanjiro's situation. In the battle at Kibutsuji Muzan that day, all the pillars had seen the strange performance of Kamado Tanjiro. How could they let such a master go? In order to attract Kamado Tanjiro, I'm afraid I visit every day these days, and it's normal to come if I don't have time. By the way, where are Tanjiro and Nezuko? Why haven't I seen them lately? Tanjiro was adopted as stepson by Master Yorokodaki Sakanji, and was taken to Mount Gyogiri. Kamado Tanjiro said hastily. The meaning of stepson is, members of the ghost killing team trained by Zu himself must have considerable talents, and ordinary people cannot be elected. Sure enough, just like the historical process, Tanjiro finally became a disciple of Shui Linzo. What about Nezuko? He does care about that lovely girl Nezuko. Nezuko was adopted as stepson by Kanroji Mitsuri. Nezuko is worshipped by Kanroji Mitsuri, the love pillar. Su Mu froze for a moment. This was unexpected. My lord is here. At this time, a crisp sound came out, interrupting the discussion between them. My lord is here. Accompanied by a clear voice, with the support of two identical little girls in purple kimonos, the Lord, Yubayashiki Kagaya came out. Su Mu's eyes fell on the two girls. The two girls were almost identical, and it was difficult to distinguish each other, except for the slightly different hair, which was almost indistinguishable. It looked like two girls, but Su Mu knows. One of them was a boy. The boy is Yubayashiki Kirya, the son of Yubayashiki Kagaya, and the girl is Yubayashiki Kagaya's daughter Yubayashiki Hina, the older sister of the boy. As for the son of Yubayashiki Kagaya Yubayashiki Kirya, the reason why a boy wears the same clothes as his elder sister, and also dresses like a girl like his elder sister, is because of the tradition of the maternity house. Because the boys in the Yubayashiki family are born weak, they will be raised as girls until they reach the age of 13. As the eldest son of the family, Yubayashiki Kirya, in addition to Yubayashiki Hina, also has an older sister Yubayashiki Rika, and two younger sisters, Sankushiki and Sankufu Linai. Their looks are almost exactly the same. The only thing that can be used to distinguish them is that Yubayashiki Kirya's hair is black. In addition to distinguishing hair, Yubayashiki Kirya can only be distinguished by gender. Yubayashiki Kirya can be distinguished by hair and gender, but the daughters are completely indistinguishable at all. Because, almost exactly the same, as the Lord, Yubayashiki Kagaya came over, all the pillars looked solemn, and immediately came out and stood in a row. Then all get down on one knee. Every pillar is extremely respectful, and from this, we can also see the prestige of the Lord, Yubayashiki Kagaya in the hearts of these pillars. It is a person who is worshipped from the bottom of the heart by the pillar. But there are some exceptions. Kamado Tanjiro, Su Mu, Tamayo and Yushiru, all did not kneel down. However, it was obvious that Yubayashiki Kagaya, the master, didn't care about this, and waved his hand lightly. Everyone, please don't be so polite. All the pillars got up now. After all the pillars stood up, Kagaya, the main housekeeper, spoke slowly. This time, the pillar union meeting will begin. The meeting this time is very simple. We welcome Kamado Tanjiro to join the Demon Slayer team and become the new pillar of the Demon Slayer team. As the figure of Yubayashiki Kagaya fell, a girl who was supporting him also came out, holding a jade pendant in both hands, walking towards Kamado Tanjiro. Thanks. Kamado Tanjiro took the jade pendant with both hands, and you can see that the jade pendant is marked with a sun pillar. Seeing this scene, Su Mu knew that the siege team had another dead man. Generally speaking, to become the pillar of the Demon Slayer team requires certain merits, but Kamado Tanjiro did not have any merits for the Demon Slayer team, but everyone. Pillar defaulted to this behavior. Obviously, Kamado Tanjiro has been recognized. After Kamado Tanjiro married the jade pendant and was willing to become the pillar of the ghost killing team, the master, Yubayashiki Kagaya, broke free from his son's hand and walked forward slowly. For Yubayashiki Kagaya, who is now frail, walking is already very difficult. Seeing this, all the pillars felt worried in their eyes. Master's health has been getting worse and worse in recent years. Although Yubayashiki Kagaya couldn't see it with his eyes, he seemed to have some kind of intuition. With this intuition, he finally came to the opposite of Su Mu.
Bow slightly. When the sun goes down, there are evil spirits haunting and eating people. There are also ghost hunters who kill evil spirits and protect human beings. Although Mr. is a ghost, he is not an evil ghost. If all the ghosts in the world are like Mr.
Su Mu smiled wryly. Although I am a ghost, I was also a human being before, that's all. Don't hold me so high when you're the Lord.
Ubuyashiki Kagaya shook his head. It's different, a ghost like Mr. can restrain his desires, don't eat human flesh, don't drink human blood, and restrain his ghost nature. Mr.'s virtue is the most admirable.
Yubayashiki Kagaya hopes that Mr. can restrain all the ghosts in the world like Mr. If so, it would be great. Su-mu is silent. Fu Kagaya now has an unfeeling request, and invites Mr. to join the siege team. Yubayashiki Kagaya bent down again and bowed to greet him. Seeing the courteous attitude of the master, the eyes of Wind Pillar, Shinazugawa Sanemi were gloomy. Amitabha, Rock Pillar, Hamejima Kiyome uttered the Buddha's chant, twirling the beads with his hands, tears streaming from his eyes.
Su-mu is slightly silent. For him, whether he joins the ghost-killing squad or not is actually a gesture of indifference to him.
Of course, if possible, he still hopes to join the ghost-killing squad. After all, joining the ghost-killing team can better understand Kibutsuji Muzen, and at the same time, can better use the power of the ghost-killing team to deal with Kibutsuji Muzen. Now, coupled with the courtesy of Yubayashiki Kagaya from the Lord, Su-mu naturally would not refuse. I actually agreed to the invitation from the master. Thank you. Yubayashiki Kagaya bowed again to express his thanks. Soon, Yubayashiki Kagaya's daughter came over with a jade pendant in both hands. Yubayashiki Kagaya took the jade pendant from his daughter, held it with both hands, and presented it to Su-mu. Su-mu was also polite, and reached out to take the jade pendant. The jade pendant is very gentle, with patterns of wisteria flowers engraved on it. And on his jade pendant, there is a word, ghost, written on it. This means that from today he is the first ghost swordsman in the history of the ghost killing squad. It is also the first ghost pillar in the history of the ghost killing team. Humph. Wind Pillar, Shinazugawa Sanemi snorted coldly. Although the matter of Su-mu becoming a pillar has been decided before, but it still makes Shinazugawa Sanemi feel uncomfortable to let a ghost become a pillar, and stand up with them. It's just that this is something that has already been decided, and Shinazugawa can't actually object.
After announcing that Su-mu became the ghost pillar, Ubuyashiki Kagaya invited Tamayo and Yushiro to join the ghost-slaying team, hoping that Tamayo and Yushiro could stay in the butterfly house and help the injured swordsmen of the ghost-slaying team heal their injuries.
Seeing that Su-mu has become the pillar of the ghost-killing team, Tamayo naturally did not nod happily.
In order to express his trust in Su-mu, and also to show that the ghost-killing team is tolerant of Su-mu, Ubuyashiki Kagaya also announced at the Zuheihui meeting that this final trial of Tang Chishan will be handed over to Su-mu will host.
You know, the selection of Tang Chishan's final trial is related to the influx of fresh blood from the ghost-killing team. Just became a pillar, and entrusted such a thing to Su-mu. It is enough to see that the master, Yubayashiki Kagaya really hopes that Su-mu can really integrate into the Ghost Slayer team. He also expressed his trust that he would not be wary of Su-mu because he is a ghost. The broad-mindedness expressed by Yubayashiki Kagaya also shocked Su-mu slightly, and at the same time, he probably understood why the pillars with different personalities respected him so much. Such a master is indeed worthy of respect. Of course, now, what Li Mu cares more about is another matter. The matter of Tang Chishan's final selection. This matter was handed over to him. If I remember correctly, there is a Tioni in Mount Tang, who will eat Makomo and invite rabbits in the future. There was an unconscious gleam in his eyes.
Since its establishment, the ghost-killing squad has experienced occasional decline, but it has survived forever. Even if it encounters dangers many times, it has survived resolutely until now. Apart from the efforts of Zhu, the most important thing is that it has an endless stream of fresh blood influx.
Because of the influx of fresh blood, although there are pillars who continue to die on the road to hunting ghosts, there are also new pillars that are constantly produced to make up for the vacancies. And Tang Chishan's final selection trial is the influx of fresh blood for the ghost-killing team, which is the foundation of the ghost-killing team. In the past, the selection of Tang Chishan was presided over by the master, Yubayashiki Kagaya himself. This shows the importance of Tang Chishan's selection. But now, he has handed over all this to the ghost Su-mu, which shows the mind of the master Yubayashiki. I will host this selection very well. Su-mu nodded seriously. Yubayashiki Kagaya shook his head. Your task is very heavy. It seems that something happened to Tang Chishan recently. I don't know why, but in recent years, the number of swordsmen who have passed the final selection of Tang Chishan and become the ghost-killing team has become less and less. If it was in the past, there would be no problem, but as Kibutsuji Muzen became active in the world, the number of ghosts created by him continued to increase by. In order to deal with Kibutsuji Muzen, it is necessary to increase the influx of fresh blood, but many people who should have been optimistic and should be able to pass the selection of Tang Chishan failed in succession. The most famous are the 13 disciples of the water pillar, Urokodaki Sakanji. It can be said that the 13 disciples trained by Urokodaki Sakanji are all elites, but it is strange that all of them failed to pass. He once sent Shinazugawa Sanemi, the wind pillar, to investigate the situation in Mount Tang, but found nothing. I'll take care of it. Before Yubayashiki Kagaya could finish speaking, Yin Mu interrupted directly. It is undoubtedly very impolite to interrupt the Lord, especially in front of the pillars, who honor Yubayashiki Kagaya. Wind pillar, Shinazugawa Sanemi is the most obvious. It's really windy here, I'm afraid it's going to flash someone's tongue. Yin and Yang strange. Su Mu turned his head and looked at Shinazugawa Sanemi, the wind pillar. Do you have an opinion? Shinazugawa Sanemi has been suppressing his aversion to ghosts before, because he doesn't want to bother with the ghost Su Mu for the sake of Kagaya. But now, seeing that Su Mu actually asked him about it, he naturally didn't mind speaking out what was in his heart. Of course I have an opinion. Shinazugawa Sanemi's face was fierce, and he looked at Su Mu even more disdainfully. Among all the pillars, here, which one did not have great achievements before becoming a pillar? For example, Kanroji Mitsuri of Love Pillar spontaneously researched the derivative breath of the breath of inflammation, the breath of love, which became the pillar. For example, Flame Pillar, with breath of flame 9 shapes. Rengoku beheaded the second, and successfully obtained recognition, taking over the position of Zizu from his father. For example, because I joined forces with my predecessor, Fengju, Joy Quangjin to kill one of the former Guhuo birds, because in the process of beheading one of the lower strings, Senior Jano Kusakami. Only when I die can I take over the position of Wind Pillar. Almost everyone who became a pillar made a unique contribution to the ghost killing team. Whether it is the record in killing 12 Kazuki, or making a contribution to the ghost killing team, it is real. In fact, the Wind Pillar, Shinazugawa Sanemi not only has an opinion on the ghost Sumiyu, but also has an opinion on the new Sun Pillar Kamado Tanjiro. After all, Kamado Tanjiro has no record against Oni, nor has he made any contribution to the siege team. Such a person can become a pillar, so what's the effort of those who have worked so hard and overcome all obstacles to become a pillar? Why, don't talk anymore, I said it to the pain point. Wind Pillar, Shinazugawa Sanemi sneered. I'm sorry, Fengju, to interrupt you, sir, he once killed 12 Kazuki. A gentle voice suddenly sounded. It was Tamayo who stood behind him. Mr. once killed 12 Kazuki, Kaminu of the lower string, by himself. Last time, Yushiru and I were hunted down by 12 Kazuki, Kaminu of the lower string. It was the Mu who appeared in time. Beheaded. On this point, Makomo, a disciple of Water Pillar, Urokodaki Sakanji, can testify. Following Tamayo's words, the eyes of all the pillars unconsciously fell on Sumu. Although all the pillars joined forces with Sumu to fight Kibutsuji Muzan that day, so they naturally saw Suemu's strength. There is no doubt that Sumu will not be the opponent of 12 Kazuki, Kaminu. However, I never thought that Sumu could kill Kaminu, the land of the string, by himself. After all, it is easy to defeat a ghost, but it is not so easy to kill a ghost. After all, ghosts are not ignorant people, especially to become 12 Kazuki, and no one is easy. Hearing Tamayo suddenly say that Sumu beheaded a 12 Kazuki, Shinazugawa Sanemi's face turned ugly for an instant, as if he had been slapped in the face in public. After all, one moment he was saying that Sumu is not worthy of being a Zu, the next second. If you think killing a 12 Kazuki is not enough, just right, I also know the trace of a 12 Kazuki. In a few days, I will kill another 12 Kazuki for you to see. Sumu narrowed her golden eyes slightly, and looked at the pillar of wind, Shinazugawa Sanemi lightly. Fists clenched unconsciously. Arrogant, too arrogant. Even he wouldn't dare to kill 12 Kazuki lightly. This ghost actually said to kill 12 Kazuki a few days ago for him to see. HMPH, then can I say, I will kill Kibutsuji Muzan in a few days to show you, anyone will say big words. Shinazugawa Sanemi taunts. Sumahihi sneered. That's good, after I kill 12 Kazuki in a few days, you are welcome to kill Muzan, the ghost dance trick. You. Shinazugawa Sanemi clenched his fists. If I kill one of the 12 Kazuki and you fail to kill Kibutsuji Muzan, well, you really make me look down on you. For this wind column, Shinazugawa Sanemi, who has always been hostile to him, he didn't give him any good face. Then wait until you kill one of the 12 Kazuki before making this big talk. What if I kill it? There was a hint of amusement in Suemu's eyes. If you can kill a 12 Kazuki in a short period of time, it doesn't matter if I kowtow to you 3 times, or bow down to you when I see you. It's a pity, can you? Shinazugawa Sanemi sneered. Within a month, I will ask you to kneel down to me. I hope that you will be able to bow down to me sincerely. Su Mu chuckled, as if he had eaten the wind pillar, Shinazugawa Sanemi to death. After the Zuhi meeting is over, Su Mu will leave for Mount Tang. He who is familiar with the plot naturally understands the reason why fewer and fewer swordsmen finally pass the selection test these years. Therefore, for him, it is not too difficult to preside over the final selection of Tang Chishan this time. At the Kochu house, he didn't have much to pack, and only took one thing with him. That is the fiancée obediently standing in front of him, Waluo Chanaping. Now, he has one thing to think about. That is whether to let Kanao face the ghost right now. A few days ago, in the competition with Suyuri Kanao, Kanao's progress exceeded his imagination, and his strength was already enough to deal with ordinary ghosts. But for Kanao, she has no experience dealing with ghosts. Never experienced real combat. Although he has a certain strength, he has never really experienced actual combat. He is completely a flower in a greenhouse. Once he really encounters a storm, he is afraid. Although, he has the confidence to protect Kanao well, but no one is perfect, and there will be negligence in the end, in case of any accident, so. But this time, he went to Tangshi Mountain, where countless ghosts were imprisoned, and he didn't worry about the subjects of the trial. Tang Chishan, as the final selection place of the ghost-killing team, has its unique features. On Tangshi Mountain, from the foot of the mountain to the mountainside, there are planted wisterias that evil spirits hate, and these wisterias are in full bloom. And the swordsmen of the ghost-killing team will also catch some ghosts and place them in the Fujishi Mountain. Because from the foot of the mountain to the mountainside, there are wisteria flowers that ghosts hate, so ghosts will not run away. These ghosts are good subjects for trials. With him escorting him, Kanao will not be in any danger. I will take you to face the ghost this time, are you willing? He crouched down, looking at Suyuri Kanawa with golden eyes, asking for her opinion. The girl nodded heavily. Seeing this, Su Mu couldn't help but smiled, and at the same time felt a touch of warmth in his heart. Suyuri Kanawa was more sensible than he imagined. What a nice girl. Should I call you, Mu, or, Ghost, Zu? As soon as he walked out the door holding Kanao's little hand, he heard the girl's gentle and clear voice. Kochu Kanae's voice is as pleasant as ever, like the warm spring sun, gentle everywhere. Raising her head, the girl was standing prettily opposite her, with her hands behind her back, as if she was hiding something. As long as Kanae doesn't ask me to call you senior. Su Mu teased. Kochu Kanae was taken aback for a moment, thinking of the tease he had made to Su Mu earlier. He couldn't help covering his mouth and laughing. Congratulations. For being the new pillar. Kochu Kanae's eyes glowed with joy. You are the ghost-killing team, the first swordsman to become a ghost in the ghost-killing team, and also, the first ghost to become a pillar in the ghost-killing team. Really amazing. Well, the two firsts are very commemorative. Yes, I am more persistent about the first time. Su Mu looked at Kanae, and said with some amusement, for example, it's the first time to be a ghost holding Kanae's hand, the first time to eat the meal that Kanae cooked for me, and the first contact with Miss Kanae. Although I already know that Su Mu's mouth is powerful, but when some words are said by Mu, I always feel an inexplicable taste. It's very blush. In the future, I look forward to more firsts with Miss Kanae. The golden eyes stared at him with inexplicable incandescent lights. Her face became hot all of a sudden, and the girl glared at him in embarrassment, 1 point of anger, 5 points of shyness, and 4 points of inexplicable emotion. You always say some inexplicable words. There's really nothing I can do about you. Such a slick tongue. I'm afraid I don't know how many girls' hearts I will capture. The girl stared at him in embarrassment, with the unique style of a girl. Like a ripe red apple, very tempting. Hey. Su Mu scratched her head, and asked tentatively. Then, have I captured Miss Kanae's heart yet? HMPH, I'm not another girl. I won't be fooled by you if I listen to your words easily. Kochu Kanae raised his head, quite arrogant. It's just that in the depths of the purple eyes, a ripple flashed inexplicably. That really disappointed me. In fact, I have always had a good impression of a beautiful girl like Kanae. Su Mu was a little disappointed. Kochu Kanae blushed even more, feeling like she was talking to the other party, afraid that it would really be. Okay, Mu, are you planning to go to Mount Tang? Kanae looked at the simple salute on Su Mu, her eyes were slightly disappointed. Yes. Su Mu nodded, and went to Tang Chishan as soon as possible to get rid of the Tioni who might endanger the lives of Makomo and Jingtu, and tried Kanao by the way. If there are, I don't mind killing a few of them along the way to make them better. Knowing that Su Mu was leaving the butterfly house, Kochu Kanae's purple eyes were filled with depression, but it was quickly hidden in the depths. This trip to Vine Attack Mountain, I hope the journey of Mu goes smoothly. Thank you for your blessing. Sumiu nodded. Although becoming a Zu is a happy thing, but in this way, Miu will have to take on more responsibilities in the future, and may also face more serious dangers. I hope. Anyway, all are safe. Bless you, you will be able to prosper in martial arts. The light voice was like a breeze, but it carried the girl's most sincere blessings. Thanks. Sumiu nodded and spoke seriously. He could feel Kanae's pure blessing. These days, at Kochu House, thank you Kanae for taking care of me. He bowed slightly and saluted again. This is also the most sincere gratitude in his heart, not false. You know, he is a ghost, and the parents of the Kochu sisters were killed by ghosts. Although the ghost who killed the parents of the Kochu sisters was not him, it is a ghost after all. The Kochu sisters didn't dislike him because of his ghost status, and they took good care of him during this time. This is for you, it is a gift to bless you to become a pillar. Kochu Kanae took out what had been hidden behind his back. It was a black cloak with several flying Kochu embroidered on it. Lifelike, as if really alive. Kochu Kanae stepped forward, stood on tiptoe, and tied him gently. The girl's fragrance lingered at the tip of the nose, and the eyes of the two touched each other in the air. The golden eyes were burning with an inexplicable meaning. The purple eyes flickered, with a bit of shame. Kochu Kanae stood in front of the window, looking at the ghost who had already left without a trace. Really left. Some lost, but some expectations. When is the next meeting? How will we meet again? In front of a window of Daiwu. Same as Kochu Kanae. The slender figure of Kochu Shinobu also stood there quietly. The wind blows gently. There was a hint of disappointment in the girl's purple eyes. Where is that guy gone? It's great that there will be no such annoying ghosts to bother Miss Ben in the future. But why? Suddenly there is a kind of reluctance in my heart. He obviously hated that ghost so much. Why did he feel empty in his heart when the other person really left? Sister Shinobi, don't you want to give Mujong a present? Kanzaki Aoi, Xiaocheng, Zhaoqing and Xiaonaho came over at some point, looked at Kochu Shinobu who was standing by the window in a daze, and couldn't help asking. Why should I send him off? I wish he would go away. It's not like you don't know that I hate ghosts the most. Kochu Shinobu turned his head, put his hands on his hips, and expressed with a fierce expression. The four little girls couldn't help shrinking their bodies when they were met by Kochu Shinobu's fierce purple eyes. But before Mu Zhong left, she left a letter for Miss Ren. Would you like to take a look at Miss Ren? Kanzaki Aoi asked carefully. The girl turned her head arrogantly. I don't want to read the letter that Ghost wrote to me. That's what it said, but the little hand stretched out very honestly. Bring it. But, Miss Shinobi, don't you want to watch it? Kanzaki Aoi had a sly look in his eyes. Kochu Shinobu couldn't help but choked up. That's right, Miss Ninja hates Mu Zhong so much, so don't read it. Right. Xiao Cheng nodded her head. Yes, Miss Ninja doesn't mind reading it. Let's take a look at what Mu Zhong wrote. Zhao King also raised her small hand to agree. Come on. Let's take a look together and see what Mu Zhong wrote to Miss Shinobu. Xiao Naiho also raised her little hand to express her opinion. Ho ho. Kochu Shinobu got angry immediately, and like an angry little milk cat, he was about to go forward to snatch the letter left by the bad guy. But Kanzaki Aoi seemed to have expected it a long time ago, turned his back and dodged directly. Quick, stop Sister Shinobi. Let's read what Mu Chan wrote to Sister Shinobi. Kanzaki Aoi hurriedly urged. Xiao Cheng, Xiao Qing and Xiao Naiho hurried forward, and the three girls hugged Miss Ren together. Although Kochu Shinobu is bigger than Xiaocheng, Zhaoqing and Xiaonaho, Kochu Shinobu's strength is his weakness big. Kochu Shinobu really couldn't break free for a moment. Kanzaki Aoi also opened the letter at this time. Dear Miss Shinobu. Kanzaki Aoi read it. Dear. Xiaocheng, Zhaoqing and Xiaonaho repeated. 3 pairs of big eyes looked at Kochu Shinobu. Kochu Shinobu's face was red. How could this nasty brat say such nasty words? Although in my eyes, you have a fierce temper, a bad personality, and easily irritable, a little short. Kanzaki Aoi read carefully. Xiaocheng, Zhaoqing and Xiaonaho didn't dare to go along with it now, and looked at Kochu Shinobu carefully. Sure enough, after reading these words, Kochu Shinobu's whole face turned pale. This evil ghost, abominable evil ghost, is really a white-eyed wolf. I have been so kind to him for so many days, and this little ghost treats me like this. The girl's white teeth were biting her red lips tightly, and her small fists were clenched tightly. If Su Mu was in front of Kochu Shinobu now, Kochu Shinobu felt that he would give him a left uppercut and a right uppercut first, and a whirlwind leg. Although his actions are a bit irritable, he can't show any sympathy when dealing with Sumyu. At this moment, Kochu Shinobu was really sad in his heart. He didn't expect to be such a person in the eyes of that evil ghost. And at this time, Kanzaki Aoi continued to read. Although, in my eyes, you have so many shortcomings, but these days, thank you for your care. You don't shy away from being a ghost, and you often come to see me these days. Thank you so much. You are like a ray of warm sunshine on that cold winter day, shining into my dark world. So warm. Kochu Shinobu, who was still annoyed at first, suddenly behaved like the angry and irascible kitten. Heh, that ghost has a bit of a conscience, and knows how good Miss Ben is. At this time, Kanzaki Aoi is still chanting, as a ghost, I'm sorry. I can feel Miss Ninja's flame like anger and hatred towards ghosts. I can understand the resentment in Miss Ninja's heart, but the past has happened, there is no people can change, and I can't change. Kochu Shinobu couldn't help lowering his head. I can't help recalling the sad scene in my mind. The scene where my parents were eaten by ghosts in front of my eyes. However, life is beautiful. Although the past memories cannot be forgotten, I still sincerely hope that Miss Ren can start a new life. There are still many good things in life. Miss Shinobi and her sister, and friends who love you very much, they, including me, all hope that Miss Shinobi can start a new life and live happily. Kochu Shinobu lowered his head, his eyes were a little sore. In my heart, even though Ms. Ninja has many shortcomings, she is very kind-hearted and understands people. Of course, she is also very beautiful. Just like I like the summer rain and the rainbow after the rain, I also like Miss Ninja's sweet smile. In my eyes, Miss Ninja's smile is so beautiful that millions of stars can't compare to Miss Ninja's smile. Miss Shinobu will be more beautiful with a little more smile every day. Okay. I like your pastoral message very much. After Kanzaki Aoi finished reading, there was a brief silence in the scene. Xiao Chang, Xiao Qing and Xiao Naiho opened their big eyes, raised their heads, and looked at Sister Shinobi with big eyes. Is this a love letter? What? Kochu Shinobu's face turned red suddenly, and he let out a scream. With some strength coming from nowhere, he broke free from the joint embrace of Xiaocheng, Zhaoqing and Xiaonaho. With a flash of his graceful body, he snatched the letter from Kanzaki Aoi's hand. Then, he stuffed it into the guide on his chest in a panic. Then, he turned his head and stared fiercely at the four girls in the room. You haven't heard anything about, you know? The four girls shrank their necks carefully. The current ninja sister is so fierce. After sending off Kanzaki Aoi, Xiao Chang, Xiao Qing and Xiao Naiho, Kochu Shinobu couldn't wait to take out the letter from his chest. I don't want to read this bastard, I will burn it for sure. Even though he said this, he still unconsciously walked to the candle. Light like beans by flickering candlelight. The girl looked at the letter unconsciously, and from time to time even started to giggle. This bad guy. Next time we see you, he must be punished for copying 1,000 times. Well, 1,000 times is too little, maybe 10,000 times. HMPH, let's see if he dares to write such nasty letters in the future. The girl wrinkled her little nose, and her pretty eyes were full of smiles. Holding Kanao's hand, Sumyu left the Kochu house. Before he knew it, it had been a long time since he came to this world, and he didn't calculate the exact time. But 3 months should be there. In 3 months, from the beginning when a junior ghost had to work hard, until now, his strength has been raised to a very high level. In other words, if he was asked to fight with style, Kochu Kanae again, Kanae should no longer be his opponent. His current strength is roughly equivalent to the pillar level. And because of the characteristics of ghosts, the combat power he can display should be stronger than that of Zu, but if the three ZHUS join forces, he should probably be defeated. Taking Suyuri Kanawa along the way, we soon came to the foot of Mount Tenji. The wisteria flowers all over the mountains are in full bloom, exuding a rich fragrance, but for some reason, smelling such a smell, there is an inexplicable disgust. Obviously, the body from the ghost should have some allergies to purple flowers. Slightly frowned. Just when Sumyu was about to endure the discomfort in his heart and prepare to go in, there was a burst of crisp footsteps. 2 little girls walked over in small steps. They were wearing exquisite kimonos, each holding a lantern. Exactly the same attire, exactly the same appearance. Twin. They have the same appearance as the 2 seen in Kochu dance, except that the 2 at Kochu dance have at least 1 black hair and 1 white hair, which can be distinguished a little bit. These 2, even their hair is white. Wei Wei was taken aback. Excuse me, is it Lord Ghost Pillar? The girl bowed, her eyes fell on the jade pendant on Su Mu's waist. The jade pendant was engraved with patterns of wisteria flowers, and the word was engraved on one side. Okay. Su Mu nodded, and at the same time looked at the 2 girls curiously. If nothing else happened, the two girls should be the two daughters of the Lord, Yubayashiki Kagaya. Probably not Yubayashiki Kirya, son of Yubayashiki Kagaya. Because Yubayashiki Kirya's hair is black. Some headaches, the Yubayashiki family members are not only difficult to remember their names, but even their faces are particularly difficult to distinguish. Welcome Lord Ghostpillar. The two girls bowed, and turned sideways, holding lanterns, obviously wanting to lead the way for him. Su Mu was not in a hurry to leave, but looked at the two girls with curious eyes. What's your name? My name is Yubayashiki Hika, my name is Yubayashiki Hanai. The two girls spoke respectfully. Rika, Hanai. Su Mu whispered slightly. Then what is the relationship between Yubayashiki Kirya and you? I'm Liza's older sister. Yubayashiki said in a low voice. It's Liza's younger sister. Yubayashiki Hana also said in a low voice. Hearing the words of the two girls, Su Mu's eyes could not help but fall on Yubayashiki Rika, the older sister, with slightly complicated eyes. If memory is correct, in the Demon Slayer anime, Infinity City, later Kibutsuji Muzan found the Yubayashiki family and launched a surprise attack on the Yubayashiki family. The Lord, Yubayashiki Kagaya confronted Kibutsuji Muzan when he was seriously ill and struggling. However, it is obviously impossible to be Kibutsuji Muzan's opponent. In the end, he chose to detonate the mansion with a bomb and severely injured Kibutsuji Muzan, so as to choose to assist Tamayo and Yenju Saro and Shingming to attack him. But the master, Yubayashiki Kagaya himself was involved in the explosion and died. Not only the master, Yubayashiki Kagaya died, including Yubayashiki Kagaya's wife Yubayashiki Amane, and two daughters also died in the explosion. The names of the two daughters, one is called Yubayashiki Hina, and the other is Yubayashiki Rika, one of the two girls in front of me. Master Ghostpillar. After waiting for a long time, Yubayashiki Hika's face was slightly flushed when she saw Master Ghostpillar was looking at her all the time. Well, don't call me Lord Ghostpillar, Su Mu frowned. Okay, Lord Ghostpillar, Yubayashiki Hika and Yubayashiki Kona said respectfully. Su Mu shrugged helplessly and lead the way. Okay, Lord Ghostpillar. Yubayashiki Hika and Yubayashiki Hana bent down, then held the lanterns and began to lead the way ahead. The further you go, the more the wisteria blooms. The fragrance of flowers, and the unique breath from wisteria flowers poured into the tip of the nose, making Su Mu feel a little uncomfortable. There was also an abnormal blush on his face. Master Ghostpillar, is there any discomfort in your body? Yubayashiki Hika seemed to notice something and couldn't help but look up. Nothing, let's go. Su Mu's voice was hoarse. The smell of the wisteria was very unpleasant, and he couldn't help but want to escape, but in the end, he still suppressed the discomfort in his heart and continued walking. Yubayashiki Hika and Yubayashiki Hana seemed to feel something, and they also accelerated their speed. Soon. Came to the top of the mountain. No longer surrounded by wisterias, at this moment, the discomfort in Su Mu's whole body was slightly relieved. There is an indescribable sense of relief all over my body. It seems that Lord Ghost Zu hates wisteria flowers very much. Yubayashiki Hika had a thoughtful look in his eyes. Snapped. The little head was hit. Yubayashiki raised her head in confusion, and looked at Lord Ghostpillar, in confusion, wondering if she said something wrong. He looked at Su Mu aggrievedly, and bit his lip lightly. I'm a ghost, of course I hate wisteria flowers. He looked at the other party angrily. Well, Master Ghostpillar is a ghost. Yubayashiki Hinaka nodded heavily. She must know that Master Ghost Zu is a ghost. Her father has already said this in the previous letter, but she dare not refute Master Ghost Zu, repeating it. Looking at Yubayashiki Hika with a pitiful look. Su Mu felt as if he had made a huge mistake. Are you all right? Yubayashiki Hinaka didn't speak, just shook her head. I didn't mean to bully you just now. I just wanted to tell you that I'm a ghost. Well, that's it. Yes, Lord Ghost Column is a ghost. Yubayashiki Hika immediately nodded heavily, thinking that Lord Guzu must be teaching her bad memory. It must be so purple. But Rixiang clearly knew that Master Guzu is a ghost, so she still bullied her. It's really overbearing. Looking at the wrong twins, he felt that he had offended two girls when he first arrived. A little annoying. Okay, I'm going in. He waved his hand a little irritably. Yubayashiki Rika and Yubayashiki Hanai finally couldn't help crying at Master Ghostpillar. Please, don't let us die please. Hang Nai and I together. Also, can't beat one. Finger inside. Yubayashiki Hinaka stretched out her finger and pointed at the top of Fujishiki Mountain. Su Mu was taken aback, knowing that the twins were wrong. I mean, you can go back, I'm going in there. Su Mu explained helplessly. Uh-huh. Hika and Hana immediately nodded like chickens pecking at rice. Just about to lead Kanao inside, I found that the two girls were still standing there, turning their heads in a strange way unconsciously. Why are you still standing here? Master, Ghost Pillar. Do you want us to accompany you? Yubayashiki Hika and Yubayashiki Kona spoke softly almost at the same time. You really want to go with me? Shaking his head like a rattle. Then ask? He stared at the two girls. Hurry up and go back. Yes, yes, Lord Ghost Pillar. Rixiang and Hang Nai hurriedly bowed down respectfully, then twisted up their dresses, carried a small lantern, and ran quickly to the residence halfway up the mountain, where it was surrounded by wisteria flowers, so there was no need to worry about being attacked by ghosts. Su Mu shook her head. What a pair of confused sisters. Master, Ghost Pillar, is so fierce. That's right, it's too fierce, so scary. Yubayashiki Hika and Yubayashiki Hana held the lanterns and walked back in small steps, muttering to each other while discussing.